Hello, it is Amy. I am back at it again with some more Avatar content, and you might recognize a beautiful lady on this stream. It's not me, it's Miss Christina. She was on my Air Nation discussion, so Christina, congratulations, you're officially my first returning Avatar content guest.
Ooh.
Yay!
Woo!
Yeah, so we also, Christina and I have been planning and scheming some future Avatar content, particularly with something called the Kyoshi novels, which we have a drinking game for this episode. Please drink any form of beverage when she mentions the Kyoshi novels or the graphic novels if you want to go crazy. Tea or wine, yeah.
They're all behind me.
Yes, she has. Those of you watching on YouTube, she's got a show and tell behind her of all of the books and an artwork. It's gorgeous.
There's so much. There's so much. All you have to do is read.
So, Christina, tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing over at Lipbringers.
Well, so me and some crazy friends like to filk music and create like little music videos and have a blast with it. And we are at Lipbringers on Twitter and Lipbringers on YouTube. You have to search though. You can. We don't have enough subscribers. If you'd like to get us to the 100 subscribers so we can get our own URL, that'd be great.
Do it.
Lipbringers is where it's at. You'll definitely see us, and it's a group of us, and we're they're very talented. I'm surprised I've been in there.
Please, Christina, you're all very talented.
Yes, okay.
Christina, you're my favorite rapper. Come on. So yeah, definitely get them up to 100 subs. The day I got 100 subs was a good day because if you search Amy Blackfire on YouTube, it gives you Army Blackfire and you can't find my channel. So the day I got youtube.com/Amy Blackfire was a great day for me. Yeah, so please check out Lipbringers and follow Christina at Lady Triple on Twitter. All the links will be in the description. Dent, tell us a little bit about yourself and if you're working on anything.
Hello.
My new guest.
New guest. Some people might know. You have a lot of ASWAF people in this realm, I imagine. So
yes.
Yeah, KW Dent 2 on Twitter. Right now, most notably, I'm doing a charity drive we're in the midst of a Song of Madness. So I'm doing a charity drive for the Cancer Research Institute where I'm making a wager every single day on who I think will win each matchup. And then if I'm wrong, that wager gets placed to the Cancer Research Institute. You can go check that out on Twitter at KWNet2. I've done a lot of different things around the ASWAF fandom. Christina and I have done the Blood of the Podcast in the past, which we haven't released an episode in like a year, so we'll see where that's going. But
the quality stands.
We're
sure. Yeah. Yes.
You're once podcast siblings, always podcast siblings.
That's right. Exactly. I've done writings for Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire, and I don't know. I do things like that. So that's a little bit about me, and I've loved Avatar for, gosh, I mean, I watched it, as it was coming out growing up. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And we've also got a cameo here from Prince Zuko himself, who knocked over an artwork, who is Christina's dog, Zuko. Hello, Zuko.
Hello.
Oh, yes. He's got his tail going. Yeah, if those of you listening on podcast form, welcome, but you should watch on YouTube because you get cute dogs in the frame.
Yes, cute baby Zuko. Knocking over priceless artwork.
Yeah, I'm also with Dent. I was watching it as it came out, and I was in middle school going into high school. I always give away my age every time, apparently, when I talk about Avatar. But we were obsessed with it, and that was my first show experience, I would say, that I remember being that dedicated to the and I was already an anime fan at the time, so I didn't see any problem with a Western style anime, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was not an otaku purist. Like, it doesn't have to be Japanese to be Japanese inspired animation. So I was really enjoying that at the same time as an anime fan. And I would have friends over to watch, and we would talk about it at lunch. And I still remember to this day the heated debate the day before the finale came out about how was Aang going to defeat the Fire Lord. We were very passionate at the lunch table, like banging our hands, being like, it's going to happen like this. So that's like kind of what makes me think of current ASWAF theorizing and stuff like that, energy is that was probably the first time I felt that energy was with this show.
What year was that? What year was the finale?
Was it
2008 or 9?
8? Okay.
Yeah, I want to say 8. Yeah. Because I remember when it started, I was in middle school, and then when it ended, I think I was in 7th grade when it started, and then in 9th grade or 10th grade is when it ended for me. But
It's
it might be
2008 or
I missed the boat, but like it was because I was in high school still, so I still would have been the age bracket, but I thought I was so cool. So
you were too cool. Yeah.
Well, I was
We
at
know,
the
Christina.
time. At the time,
I
I thought I
know.
was going to be a Japanese studies major in college rather than Chinese studies major. So I was like, "Ooh, kind of Japanese animation." Then I realized now I did a whole episode on this self plug. I did an episode on Chinese writing and Avatar, and it's just Chinese. So I was like having a field day, like reading all of the characters and everything. Because when I first watched them, obviously I didn't understand it. But this was like I just completed my like 10th rewatch or something. And I
Nice.
think I appreciate it more and more each time. It's really one of those shows that stand up, that hold up. And I've been rewatching some other shows lately that do not hold up as well as this does.
Can I ask you a question, Amy?
Yes, of course, Dent.
So you talked about because this is something that it's the American anime, right? Maybe it's the great American anime, even if you want to call it that. I know there's some like discord over whether or not it's an anime. Call it whatever you want, but I guess I think it's cool that it's clearly inspired by anime, but it's developed. It's an American television show, so I kind of see that as a positive that it derives from that inspiration. But somebody with clearly a background in that field like yourself, I guess, what do you think about that? You already kind of answered this question, but
Yeah,
I wanted to answer it too, so I formed it in the form of a question.
Yeah, I think I feel like a lot of people that speak on this subject strictly watch Japanese anime who speak out against this kind of what they would call cultural appropriation. And I always send them a link for a Korean manga, and I say, "Is this not anime? Manga, because it's from Korea and not Japan. This is great. Like it's in Korean. Obviously I'm reading it translated into English. There's Chinese manga. What? That's like, how close enough does it have to be to the culture to be okay? Which is why I always say just open it up. As long as it's respectful to the original art, I don't understand, kind of why one would shut themselves off to all amazing animation out there. And it is a style in the end. And I don't think that, with stuff like Hello Kitty and all of that, like, do you really think Japan is it exporting this stuff? That's insane. They want to make the money off of it, so they love when things like this get popular, because this leads Americans to all sorts of Japanese animation.
Their gateway.
Yeah.
Seriously, Avatar is a lot of otaku's gateway drug.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way I see it, share the love everywhere for Avatar. But Dent, I'm throwing this back at you though, since you asked me a question. We were talking about let's do some Avatar stuff, because I was already doing stuff with Christina, and I was really excited when I saw you. The second I saw, I think it was on the Nada Slack, that you were into Avatar, maybe it was on Twitter, I DM'd you, I was like, we're doing Avatar stuff.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Zuko, one of the first things. I said, character studies, theme studies, we still have 3 more nations to go, or a theme or something. I'm going to talk about Hack's Dogma soon, just about the finale and why it was one of the best in television history. We're gonna have a really good time talking about that. So I was like, did anything, and you mentioned Zuko, so tell me about that.
So why I love Zuko, essentially, is that the question? Yeah. Yes. So Zuko is Jaime Lannister within this universe, basically, right? I think the way he's written, especially Avatar is this thing that was written for this audience. It's written for children, right? It aired on Nickelodeon. But just because something is being written for children doesn't mean that you can put in these, really, really impactful, arcs and how the character deals with their emotions and learning how to find themselves and all these different things that we're going to talk about here today. And I think Zuko, every second that he's on screen, the writers waste nothing with where he starts and how he gets to where he ends. So for those reasons, I just think Zuko, every time I rewatch, I'm like, man, I'm just, as I've continued to grow, I write as a hobbyist and, have studied ASWAF and all these things. And still, when I go back and watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, the entire show is very good. But every second Zuko's on screen, I'm like, man, the writing for this guy is just incredible. It doesn't matter if you're comparing it to, these very adult writing methods. So, I mean, that's just a little bit. I think Zuko's story is just fascinating, really. So that's why I'm kind of drawn to him And he does remind me of Jaime Lannister, which I'm sure won't be the last time I say that tonight. So,
oh yes, parallel away, my friend.
Yeah.
I think actually I said this on Twitter and I stand by it. So this is another hill I'll die on, which those who listen to me know there are many hills with which I expire on. But on this particular hill, Zuko has the single best individual arc in all of animation, and I will die on this hill. Like seriously, the way that it is textbook kind of how he gets from A, B to C, but it's so nuanced and fresh in a lot of ways that I think I don't always see with kind of the average going villain to hero arc, to put it very, very simply.
So I will say that my experience with this was I did not watch it in the beginning, so I watched it more recently, like within the last year maybe. I don't remember when, but I'm obviously older when I watched it. And I was not expecting him to, at the end of book 2, I thought he was going to be good then. Like, I thought he might turn to good. And, like, that shocked me when he, betrayed Katara, denied the healing water. I thought that was his moment. And when he didn't, I was like, oh my God, like that, it was still shocking. Like I was still, and I mean, God, I have a lot to say about subverting expectations.
I was just about to say, don't forget that buzzword, Christina, subverting buzz phrase, subverting expectations.
But that was the whole thing, was like, that still shocked me as someone who's like lived through the ASWAP, lived through like the era of like expectations subverting, like that shocked me. And he was still redeemed beyond that, even though like that was so, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's still a compelling character, even when you hate
it was
him.
Complicated. It was his chance. And I mean, I don't even know where to begin on this conversation because there's so much like his whole like it's all about like the Fire Nation, his family has so much to do with it.
Loyalty.
And, like, honor, drink. Honor versus destiny, double drink.
Yes, we've hit another one on our drinking game, honor. I actually think the way that they humanize him is probably one of the best that I've seen in animation. Like, I'm just gonna, those of you watching on YouTube, I'm gonna throw up a picture of him and Azula there. The way that she makes him vulnerable makes me really connect to his character like I didn't in the first season. Once we hear about Azula and what was their weird family dynamic, that's when I was like, oh wow, there's a lot more to Zuko than just honor and a ponytail.
But the thing is, so I've been reading, like, I've been going deep because it's a pandemic, and that's how I do. When I love things, I dive in. And so I've been reading the Legacy of the Fire Nation. There's my camera. Legacy of the Fire Nation.
I think that's a drink.
I think that qualifies.
Yes, she referenced the outside sources. Is that a manga?
No, it's actually it's letter.
A book. Okay.
It's a book, but it's actually supposed to be a journal of. It's a gift for Zuko. It's a book from Iroh to Zuko about the Fire Nation and their family and everything. And I cried after the first page. I literally cried the first page, and it's really interesting because also Break. Which is the creators, signed off on it. So it's canon, all right, to some people.
I'm not a canon purist either, so you don't have to worry about that.
No, I'm referring to someone super specific that is on this channel that is not you. So if you do the math, you will know. So
I can't read.
It's Zuko the dog. It's Zuko the dog. He can't be in this episode. Get him out of here.
Oh my God, I know.
Christina, I can't read. Could you tell them to make a television show about it first?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, so there's so much talk in here though. It was great because I wanted to like be prepared for this episode, obviously, and not on the Scar way, even though that would be like a great song for the Fire Nation, would be prepared. But that's about, I mean, the Fire Nation, like, okay, gosh. I want to say in the Kyoshi novels, but it's so true.
Do it.
It's so like even if you go back to the Kyoshi novels.
I can't wait for our book club, Christina, where
I
I
know, I
actually can
can't
go
wait.
in the Kyoshi novels with you. Christina and I are going to do a book club thing where we're going to talk about it as I read. So I'll be the virgin and she'll be.
So I took notes.
Oh, look at you.
I took notes while I was reading, but it's so true though. Like everything about Zuko, it's a culmination of all of this pent up toxicity within the Fire Nation, and like specifically within the royal family of the Fire Nation. He's kind of like a modern day, or sorry, Harry and Meghan are like the modern day Zuko.
I was not expecting it to go there.
That went someplace I was following you, and then all of a sudden left turn.
It's true. It's true.
I got you. No, I do think that is interesting, Christina, because you know we joke about honor, but like for him, there's this family legacy that is on his shoulders constantly, and you kind of get that the first season. But for me at least, it's not really until they go to Ember Island and such that I kind of learn more about how much pressure the family, particularly his father, was putting on him, and how the siblings were pitted against each other, which only made it worse.
Okay, so that's the whole thing about it, is like this is a generational thing. Like Zuko and Azula are not the only Fire Nation siblings to be pitted against each other. It happened with Ozai and Iroh. It happened. Okay, so I'm just taking this from my notes, but Iroh saying to Zuko, being born into this family is being born into pressure and war. War, destruction, subjugation of other peoples was the family business. And unquenchable thirst for power and violence could not be sated. That's the Fire Nation. And the whole goal, and this is like, and so I read this through the eyes of Iroh, but like Iroh, when he lost, so Iroh was born into this and like kind of playing the role of the heir, and he's doing everything right. He's got Dent, who's going to be his successor, this amazing soldier boy. Soldier boy, tell him, right?
I went the other way. with the soldier boy.
She made me laugh.
I know.
I needed that because I was about to be like, Christina, it's too early for me to cry in this episode. Give me like at least the 30-minute marker. Come on.
Is that the right? Like, isn't that it?
Yeah.
Am I doing it right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, so he was the amazing soldier boy. Tell him. Okay. So then, after like 2 years, right? Iroh, I know this should be drunk history to be honest.
Drunk ATLA history.
So after 2 years, so Iroh's laying siege to Ba Sing Se for almost 2 years. I don't know. I think it's like 600 days, something like that. Dent dies, so he wins Ba Sing Se. They break the first wall, and Dent dies, and that changes everything for Iroh. He's like, F this. This isn't my path. Oh, thank you. Oh, God.
I gotta put up the picture of whenever Iroh does his lights incense for his late son, and I just can never get through that whole episode without crying at least 3 times. So it's just, I've resigned myself to it every rewatch.
Do you know the best part? Oh, I want to interrupt Christina. Continue on, Christina.
Oh, well, I was going to say is that Iroh, so in his death, he realized that the plan that my family had for me didn't have to be my story. And that's what he's trying to show Zuko the whole time. And you could choose not to honor their legacy and instead make their own way in this world. And so in Zuko, Iroh saw his second chance to change the course of the family line and give Zuko the life he could not give his son, essentially.
Yeah, that's great. Or not great. It's great writing and well said.
Yeah.
I would say to kind of build on that and go back to the very beginning of our story. Do you think that at the very start, like, do you think Iroh maybe feels Zuko's in a good place in being not banished, but being outside of the Fire Nation, right? Because, like, Iroh, when he was Zuko's age, was likely firmly within this military-industrial complex mind. I mean, we can essentially assume as much, considering where he, what he grows into. So perhaps he's even seeing Zuko banished and understanding there's a lot of work to do here, but at least he's outside of it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He does not have those expectations on him any longer. Now we just need to figure out how to redirect him. But I kind of wonder if Iroh's sitting there even in episode 1 and thinking Zuko's in a better place right now than he would be if he was back in the Fire Nation, right? And he's kind of just sitting there waiting to continue guiding him through this.
Yeah, I think he sees it as a second chance for his nephew, and that's why he doesn't want it being squandered on this, what is thought to be an impossible mission to find the Avatar. So I think that he wants him to. Oh, what did I say? Impossible. What?
Avatar?
Find the Avatar. Like capture the Avatar.
Capture the Avatar.
Capture the Avatar. Cheers.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot our own drinking game that we made.
It's okay. I wrote it in a random Twitter message.
I think we're already up to like 3 out of the 5-ish or so that you so capture the Avatar. Exactly. That's the mission. And I think that Iroh, because of what he went through with Luted, we Christina already mentioned second chances, which I think is a lot of what Iroh and Zuko's storyline are eventually about. And I think also that idea of, oh my God, I'm going to get so corny. Just get ready for this. Are you ready for this? Disney Channel shit right now?
Yes.
It's about how friendships
Nickelodeon, actually.
lifetimes and beyond death. Like with how Zuko is friends with the Avatar, and then his grandfather or great-grandfather was friends with Roku.
Great-grandfather. Sozin and Roku.
Yeah, and then you've got Zuko and Aang, and it's like friendship never ends. Like it's some like Spice Girl stuff going on. But
no, I am 100% in the belief, and you will never. This is my hill to expire on. Is that? But the thing about my hills is that I will always be reincarnated, so it never ends. I'm the avatar of this hill.
Nice.
And it's that Zuko and Aang were destined to be friends. They really were. Like, they were destined to be friends. And that's my opinion. But it all goes into, like, the family tree, right? And everything starts with... the whole 100-Year War started with Sozin and Roku and their relationship. I mean, it had such shockwaves that impacted everybody. And so basically, and I love, not to bring up the Kyoshi novels.
Oh, here she goes. Cheers.
Cheers.
I will say that, like, I hate to say that my gripe, like, I hate when people gripe about Korra a lot, Legend of Korra. But I will say, like, my one gripe with it is, like, I do love stories that, like, have a journey into becoming the Avatar. I think that's really interesting, and that is a cool thing to see. And we haven't, in the animated series, like, we haven't really seen someone be like, oh, I'm the Avatar. Like, how am I dealing with this? Like, Aang had that already happen, and then now he's coming back and he, like, knows he's the Avatar. Korra is just kind of like a baby in an Avatar, So it's like, it's this whole realizing that you're the Avatar will mess up, like, your relationships with everybody around you and have implications for yourself and everybody around you. So that was a cool thing that they showed with Roku, was that Roku and Sozin were best friends, childhood best friends. And Sozin was Prince Sozin, destined to become the Fire Lord.
Those were the dynamics, and it was always that way. And then all of a sudden...
And then Roku's his best friend, and then Roku is the Avatar, and then that changes things. And Sozin is jealous of him.
Yeah.
And
Roku has responsibilities to a larger context, a more meta view of the world than just being, the Fire Lord would be mostly caring about your own nation, or that's how they interpreted it. Also, I'm glad you mentioned Roku, Christina, because it's time for my show and tell. This is my Chinese dragon, and I named him Roku. I've had him for a very long time, so
beautiful.
I just wanted to show that off. I'll put him back on his perch now.
Rose.
There we go. this. And I can see everything's backwards on StreamYard, so I always go the wrong way.
I know, me too.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about the Iroh Zuko relationship. Let's go ahead and lean a little bit more into that panel, because I think that's probably one of the most interesting mentor-mentee relationships that we get in animation, but especially in this show. You know, we do hear about Gyatso and Aang, and we see some flashbacks to that. Yeah. But I think the Iroh Zuko relationship, to me, is that classic tale in East Asian stories of the master telling the student, cautioning them in certain ways, telling them things that the student doesn't really learn until quite later, after they've already basically insulted their master. I mean, it's a very, very classic Asian storytelling, and we definitely see that with Iroh and Zuko. You know, so I put up this picture earlier of them in season 1, but I just love them when they are at the tea house. It is domestic tranquility, and I know it's not meant to last, but we are meant to savor it, is kind of how I saw that.
Wait, because, I know I didn't send this to you, but I have one of them when they're old.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so cute.
And I do like the little bit in Legend of Korra that we get of Iroh in the spirit world, where he's still, you know, spitting wisdom and drinking tea. Oh, tea. Cheers. Talking about Iroh's drinking tea. Cheers. That was the other one I was forgetting.
Ooh, cold. Best tea in Bossing say? Coldest tea in Bossing say? Sorry. It's one of my favorite ones.
I would say, I think the space that Iroh's coming from, it's talked about a lot within the fandom. You got to get Zuko in there.
Oh, he's drinking the tea off my mouth.
Oh, he's just like his uncle.
He's like, I love this leaf juice.
Oh my God, whenever Zuko said, it's all leaf juice, and I was like, how could you say
such a thing?
That's just so great. I'm sorry, Dent, we've interrupted you like 3 times with quoting the show and talking about dogs. Go ahead.
If ever there was a reason to interrupt me, it's totally fine. You know, I think what Iroh realized, you know, he came to this realization about himself a lot later in life than Zuko even does, right? In reality, Zuko, where he gets to, he's decades ahead of his very wise uncle, right? But Iroh knows that, like, let's get into a little bit of, like, at the start, Zuko's locus of control is as external as it can possibly get, right? Everything is about his acceptance from his family, which we've talked a little bit about, right? He's got this peg that he's trying to fit his identity into, right? He has to be this person, and the way he can get back to being that person is capturing the avatar. Everything is being...
Sorry to interrupt you, but you know.
Well, no, I mean, I just stepped right into that one. But he... everything about him is controlled by other people, particularly his father and his family. And what Iroh knows, because he's gone through it, and this is very common with anybody that you're teaching, right? They have to figure it out themselves, is that you have to learn how to be happy within yourself and accept who you are as a person, right? And that's not, you can't just tell somebody that, right? You can't say, oh no, just be happy with yourself. It's that, oh, okay, that's easy. Thanks for the advice, right? Zuko has to go through and do that himself before he's able to make that change. And Christina talked about a little bit earlier. One of the greatest parts of Zuko's arc, and what makes the writing so good, is that they give it to him. They send him back. He's accepted by his father. He gets to have it, right? Yeah. That's kind of strange. You don't see that a lot in writing, where they go back and he killed the avatar, is what publicly is expected. Now that's not true, but you know, that's what they think, is that they've killed the avatar, and he gets to have this thing that he was looking for. And that's when he realizes, this thing I thought I wanted isn't what I thought it was, right? And that's like, Christina, you mentioned it, that's like mind-blowing. That's where you're like, what a way to show that this character's changed. You're like, no, we're just going to give him that thing. You know, he wants to go back and be accepted by his father and have his place at the right side. Let's just give it to him.
There you go.
Great way of showing. And that's where his arc really then starts to pick up, and you're like, this character has changed. You know, they show you how he's different. Yeah. It's really, really good.
Zuko that confronts his father and kind of gives him a piece of his mind, right? That is the Zuko that took over 2 seasons to, develop. And I think that his triumph is so earned that people that I know that Zuko was one of their least favorite characters by season 1, and this is when it was airing, so this was before we knew how he was going to turn out. He was in their top 5 by season 3.
Oh yeah.
So he was actually my favorite character the whole time. You know what I love with rewatches, Dent and Christina, is I can just double check to make sure it wasn't just thirst in middle school and high school that made me like Zuko, but I can confirm he's a hot character who happens to also have a very fascinating story arc. But yes, growing up, I was kind of into the a little bit of the emo boys. So I was kind of into him.
What was your favorite?
Also into the girls too. I love goth chicks, so I was like all about him. So I'm really coming out in this episode, dear listeners, that I have thirsted after Zuko for a while, and that was one of many animated characters which I felt a certain attraction to.
But what hairstyle was your?
Good question.
Hands down, it's book 3 hairstyle. Hands down, book 3 hairstyle.
Agreed.
He cuts off his ponytail and it's grown out. Yes, Panic at the Zuko Disco is my favorite hairstyle, and I will. Oh my god, I will forever stand him with myself. I will ever ship him with myself. That's just the way it is.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. No,
I get it. You know something too that sticks out right away about him, and again, this gets back into I'm always just dumbfounded by how good the writing is from start to finish, right? They don't waste a moment of what characters do. Even though there's a lot of fun, silly filler episodes, the filler episodes still seem like you're peeling back the layers on some of these characters. But even in the first episode, right, you've got Zuko tracking down the Avatar. Does that track? Does that count?
Oh, damn it. All right.
I'm gonna when he attacks the Southern Water Tribe, and Aang says, if I go with you, will you leave these people alone? He says, yes. Aang goes with him, and then Zuko leaves them alone and leaves. Now, to a first-time watcher, that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but as you get to learn about the Fire Nation and you see how a lot of the rest of the Fire Nation operates, you're kind of surprised by that. Most of the other Fire Nation officers are going to turn around and burn down the village and leave.
Yeah.
Zuko's different. It goes to show right away, and this is the very end of the first episode, right, that this guy is really just trying to find his home again. In a lot of ways, that kind of reminds me of Aeswolf comparison, Daenerys Targaryen, right, where he's just kind of a lost child, really, who's trying to find their way back to the place that they think they belong. Yeah. Interesting if the way we see Zuko go home and not belong, that kind of reminds me of maybe what we're going to get from Dany too, right? That she'll get to where she thinks she needs to get, and it's not what she thought it was. So
yeah, the burden of the Targaryen legacy too, I think, is similar to the Fire Lord family, the royal family. I think that's
also they both like
what's
fire.
So. Yeah.
Ooh.
Deep takes.
Deep takes.
And they both. Never mind. I was gonna make a joke about how in the show she's somehow fire resistant and not in the. Okay, just.
I do think Zuko's general connection.
I'm more at peace now.
I also think Zuko's connection with firebending and that trek with Aang to go find the origins of firebending is one of the best kind of individual trip arcs. Yeah, you've got Christina with her shirt, which is this design where Zuko and Aang are looking at they're basically being taught the origins of firebending through fire, which is actually also very common in Eastern storytelling. This idea of when you learn something that's original wisdom, it's not going to be through books. It's going to be through teachers who demonstrate, who show you. So you have Ran and Shaw showing them through. Which you okay, Christina?
Yeah. Sorry.
You're okay.
Yeah, it's the new house. I'm trying to.
Don't blame it on the house.
Blame it on the house. Anyway, the Ran and Shaw, these dragons, right, are teaching them the teachings through firebending, right, through the multicolored kind of fire, which is also showing that. This is something that's commonly also talked about in Asian medicine, which is that fire is, of course, the burning element, the kind of can be the element of anger, but it can be the element of creation as well. And I think that one thing I love about Avatar: The Last Airbender is how you get this actually directly through Iroh's little teachings that he does to when he's teaching redirecting lightning to Zuko, which is that it's an illusion that these 4 elements are separate. They all have aspects of one another. There's a very yin and yang kind of theory going on. But with the 4 elements, even though I will say in China it would be the 5 elements, which would be fire, water, earth, wood, and metal, but they went with the Indian 4 elements. And you know what? I'm okay with it because I love airbending. So
they have metal bending.
They do technically have metal bending. That is true. Yeah,
eventually.
I like how they have these subclasses of bending too, which is just like one of the best part of the show. We have metal bending, you have blood bending, the water healing, all sorts of cool stuff. Lightning, of course, and lava bending. Anyway,
lava bending.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, let's do a full Lin episode. Eventually. Sorry, wait. I'm gonna turn off my camera.
But the point I'm trying to make is when Zuko and Aang go on this quest and find firebending, he really kind of starts to learn about how his anger was fueling his bending and how that is not how he can live anymore and how it was destructive to live that way in the first place.
Yeah, I think I think that also says a lot about his character. And again, I think that goes back to his locus of control. Maybe I should drink every time I say that, right? But
locus of control, I love it.
I think like anger is like an emotion that's built from fear and confusion, right? Like that's where anger comes from. You don't understand something or you're confused by something, and that's where your anger comes from. And that's where Zuko is early on. He doesn't know who he is. He's angry at how he's been treated by his family and his place in this world. And because of that, that's where his firebending comes from. It also gets into, how they teach firebending in the Fire Nation, blah, 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 etc. I think it says a lot about his character, though. And as he starts to learn about himself and that locus of control comes more internal, he's not angry anymore because he's not confused, right?
Yeah.
He knows where he stands in the world now and what his journey is supposed to be. So where's the anger? There's no more anger, right? There's only peace. Through understanding comes peace. But that requires, and it's great that they have that affect his bending, that now he has to learn where now do you get your power from? Like, I think that's just great.
Gosh, it gives me so many, I've been getting into like the Star Wars lore lately.
I know, I sounded like I'm Yoda there.
Well, no, but it's so true. It's almost like with firebending.
Enlightening,
a
that
lot
was,
of it.
Dent.
But with firebending, that's the one that reminds me the most of like the Jedi and the Force and the light and the dark side. And it's like, don't let anger fuel it, because like anger is such a powerful like fuel for it, but that's not really where the true power is. And like seeing, and it's like the dragons know it and everything. And I will have to say, I totally stole this from that book, but
the Kyoshi novel?
No, this book, The Legacy of the Fire Nation.
Still counting it.
Yeah, we're counting that.
From the book.
It still counts.
And sorry about so I realized that the plug I had my laptop connected to does not have power running to it or something. So my laptop was about to die.
That's not how that works, Christina.
And then I was casually trying to change the outlet without anyone noticing and like knocked over my drink. And sorry, guys. Anyways, that was my mess. That was my arc on this pod. So Brian came and helped. Thank you, Uncle Bryro.
Nice. Uncle Bryro.
I know. Yeah, Uncle Bryro. But actually, so I love this analogy, and it does come from the creators, so it's semi-canon, and I won't claim it as my own. But it's each Agni Kai that Zuko goes into reveals more about himself. So there were 3, right? So the Agni Kai with Ozai showed that Ozai had no love for Zuko. And Zuko's banishment was a punishment, but also was an opportunity to move forward on his own journey instead of the path that his family wanted for him. So that was like the first major thing. And that's how Iroh describes it. It's like this banishment was an opportunity for Zuko as you guys were kind of saying earlier, like it was an opportunity for Zuko to get away from his toxic family and like have his own path. And I don't know if Iroh was like I don't think he's like Blood Raven by any means and is like 10 steps ahead or whatever, but I think Iroh seeing this like recognizes the opportunity to mentor him in a way that he didn't have the wisdom when he was Luten's father.
Agreed.
He didn't have the wisdom then, but like now he does, and so this was Iroh's like second chance. And so this was also Zuko's opportunity to get away from his family and be his own person. And so then there was the second Agni Kai with Sao, and Iroh describes that as, you know, Zuko, you were immature to get into the Agni Kai, but when Zuko spared him, he showed us his heart. That Zuko, and this is kind of a theme throughout, is that Zuko has heart.
Yeah.
Unlike, you know, Azula and like other Fire Nation, you know, specifically like royal Fire Nation children, like, you know, you see them described as, you know, let me think, just like
does that pair pretty well?
Big egos, right? There's lots of big egos. There's a lust for power. You know, Azula was very cocky and, you know, wanted power, and she, you know, because she was the preferred sibling. You know, Ozai showed her favoritism, etc. But then the last Agni Kai with Azula, this showed Zuko at like, this was his peak as a character.
Yeah.
And it showed him as a true warrior. And only that time he was mature, balanced, breathing, at peace. And it showed that he had grown up, and his heart burned the brightest when he protected Katara. And he was protecting the other nations. And that was Iroh's goal, was to show Zuko, like, you can be a great leader, but you can also, but to be a great leader, you have to lead by example. And, right, which is what Iroh did. And also just like learning from others around you. And that's something that shows up just within the Avatar universe in and of itself. Like, you see, you know, when characters win major battles against, you know, really scary opponents, that they're using different bending techniques. Like, you see Zuko in the Agni Kai with Azula, like, Brian pointed this out, that he's doing like this big like water bending. Like,
yeah. Something that Iroh showed him, how you can be inspired by other bending. Yeah. And also
so him like fully realized, right?
And you mentioned the Agni Kais, which I think are worth pulling on a little bit, just the language of it. So Agni is the fire god in Hinduism, and it's very common in Hindu rituals, specifically marriage rituals, where the couple will walk over a fire and start their married life. And it's this idea of overcoming an obstacle. So while we think of fire as only destroying, actually the Agni Kai is more of kind of this, you would think just clash of fire, but it's more about overcoming the obstacle and settling the dispute, basically, is kind of how I see the Agni Kai. Whereas kind of the violent nature of it tends to be most of the focus when you think about it. It's actually showing how, you know, things can be resolved. And every Agni Kai we see, it is resolved, it's just not always with maybe necessarily the product that we want. We don't always get what we want, but we do get what needs to happen for Zuko's character with each of those Agni Kai.
Yeah. And look at what we get. So, Christine, you know, I mentioned earlier he doesn't attack the village because he said he wasn't going to when he takes Aang, right? Christina pointed out he's merciful Zhao. That's in the second episode, right? We see
and it's a small thing, but he does not take Appa, even though he could have, right? He was right there to steal Appa, and he did not. It's a small thing,
take
but
Appa.
Being nice to animals is like puts you really well up on
for
my
sure.
list.
And what's the first thing, or not, this isn't the first thing we see from him, but we learned why he was banished. He spoke out in defense of his people, essentially, right? People that were going to be sent to the slaughter. That's why he was banished. So I think too, that shows like why Iroh not only does like everybody deserve a second chance and things like that, but I think Iroh also saw this Zuko kid also has heart, right? He's different. He's got a bigger heart inside of him than a lot of other people within the Fire Nation, despite the fact that he's as close to, you know, this really militarized center of the government. So Zuko, while he is also the everyman who deserves a second chance, is also special in his own right. So I think it's really interesting.
And it's a lot of it is like, especially reading like this. All right. Reading this book. You all should read it. Just read it. It's great. I read it in like an afternoon.
The drinking game will encourage us to read it, Christine.
That's true.
Because we'll get so drunk that we'll impulse buy it online.
I'll just read it to you right now. No,
book club, everyone.
I know, right?
That's what I'm doing with the Poppy War with book club that I'm doing right now. I'm literally reading it to them each week, chapter by chapter, because not all of them are going to read it. And I was like, no, you're going to enjoy my content. You're going to read the books it's about.
No, but it's really great because it's from Iroh's point of view, and it's funny and like he makes jokes and whatever. He's like, here's the thing about history, it lies, and then like 3 pages later, it's like he's talking about the dragons, and he goes, "Yeah, I said I killed the dragons. Remember what I said about history? I lied."
Oh, there was something I saw. It probably popped up on your radar, Dent and Christina, that was a super feelsy Avatar take, and it was like, hey, probably when Iroh went and met the dragons and he did the dragon dance, he might have done that with Luton. And I was like, don't you dare do this to me. Don't you dare do that to me.
Say that he did it in that.
It takes two to tango, though, right?
It takes two to do the dragon dance, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. I'm losing sleep over this.
It wasn't confirmed. Well, I mean, I can like open up.
Do they say in that episode that it requires 2 to do the ceremony? I believe it's specified.
I assume because of the statues that teach it. It's doubled. If it were just one person, they would have had just one, right? And the little steps, right, that you have to step on, it has to be 2 people doing it at the same time.
Right, and because the idea was like Zuko could probably do it on his own, but Aang was like, I don't know what I'm doing, like, and that was kind of the part of the issue with the episode, and Aang's kind of thrust into a position where he has to step up and do that too. So I think we're supposed to assume that it's 2, but Christina, you have found something in your books.
Well, it's just like the dragon. I think it's the dragon of the West. I mean, he says, a good deal of my knowledge and insight comes from studying under the Sun Warriors and the last of the dragons. They are called Shaw and Ram, and they were patient with me. One dragon was red, the other blue, but both taught me temperance in all things, using their great and ancient bodies to form the Taijitu, Taijitu, Amy.
Taijitu.
Yeah, Taijitu. The universal form
it's the yin and yang symbol is the Taijitu. Yeah, and here's a picture of Ran and Shao there showing the origins of firebending. And so the Taijitu is literally the Chinese word for the yin and yang symbol. And so there's this idea. We also see this with Tui and La, the little in the Northern Water tribe, the fish, the koi fish that are the spirit of the ocean and the spirit of the moon. And then all of a sudden, Yue comes up to the moon, and she's totally Chang'e, the moon goddess from Chinese mythology. If you watch my video on Avatar, Chinese writing and myths in Avatar, I talk about that. So lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of them as yin and yang, so that's essentially like they try to trip you up. You're like, but one is red and one is blue. It's like, no, that's if one is right and one is black, it would have been even more obvious. But there's this idea of balance, which is why Zuko struggles so much when he is so angry, because he's imbalanced, right? He has way too much anger and not enough peace, right? There are way too much chaos and not enough order. And it's not saying that you should have all order, because you need a little bit of chaos, right? You need spontaneity, especially in Taoism, which is where
that's not where the yin and yang symbol comes from, but it's become popularized within Taoism. And so there's this idea of the balancing and each having a little bit of the other. But I say this every time, this is my disclaimer. In yin and yang theory, the white, which is the male, is superior to the black, which is the female, unfortunately, because effing patriarchy. And that's our drinking game that I do every episode, so drink.
Shoot.
Seriously, effing patriarchy, though. So, but we get the sense with Ron and Shao that they are equal dragons. One is not better than the other, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Equal dragons bring in the knowledge of firebending at you.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the way that he's describing it, though, he's referring to himself. So
yeah, he could have conspicuously left out his companion. I mean,
I guess they did show him. They did show him how to. Remember how he breathes fire? Like, has any other firebender breathed fire? Did Lieutenant? That's how you would know. Like, you'd be like, oh, Lieutenant breathed fire at some point. And not like putting a lighter in front of his face and taking a shot of 451.
I could probably do that.
I think whenever Azula was caught up by Katara, she was angry. She was blowing fire out of her mouth. I do think it is possible.
Really?
Yeah, because she was like, I'm mad.
I remember that.
Trust me, we're going to talk about Azula because I'm not very happy with how a lot of stuff I've seen just being like, she's crazy, and totally
she needs a redemption.
Let's talk about Azula.
Some real stuff. Let's do it. Yeah.
Well, okay. Wait, I was going to say, first of all, I want Azula to have a redemption arc, and I've heard rumors that Bryke, the creators, that's their nickname, right? Yeah. Okay. So Bryke has said that they've intended for her to have a redemption at some point.
I just think what Iroh did for Zuko,
I think she's redeemable.
He could do for Azula, right?
Yeah.
You just okay. Once again, Disney cheese coming at you, even though this is Nickelodeon. If you have someone that believes in you and helps you, that goes a really long way for someone's personal development.
Of course it does. Yeah.
I think Azula just needs a little bit of attention that isn't her father being nuts.
Yeah, and the whole thing too, like, I mean, I know that Azula's mom, like, was like, something's wrong with her.
Oh,
well, yeah. Well, no, I mean, I don't have an Azula. Oh, I got a little sleepy Zoots back here, though.
Oh, he's laying down.
He's behind this book no one's read.
Oh, hello, Zuko. This book, such subtle digs at both of us did. About not reading the external sources.
That's okay, they're not canon.
He's behind all these, like,
oh my god, fight!
He's behind all these canon.
I've never seen them on television, Christina. I'm not sure.
I hope we do see them on television, though.
I do too.
Oh,
I know.
And one of the reasons
animated. No live action.
Yes, animated. That's one of the many reasons that I started doing Avatar content is because of the possibilities of an Avatar animated universe out there.
And look what we're getting.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very, very excited for that. So yeah, let's dig a little bit more into Azula. And I'm an only child, so I can't speak for this, but there is this dynamic. My mom and dad are both have siblings and have told me about this dynamic of the golden child and kind of the competition that goes on. And of course the dynamics between the mother and Azula and Zuko and kind of the difference there. We know she loves both of her children, but she is fearful of what Azula could turn into. And she doesn't have those kinds of issues with Zuko, it seems, in early childhood.
Well, the whole thing is, I was going to say, it's like, it's a problem that runs in the family, but it's favoritism. Yeah. And Ozai favored Azula, and because she was powerful. I mean, she had lightning bending. That's powerful, especially in the family. Like, the family, I mean, when Aang took his bending away and having that Ozai's bending away and like having that be like that was his power, right? And they actually, if you go up the family tree, they purposefully married Ozai to Roku's great granddaughter, right? Yeah.
Granddaughter? Yeah, granddaughter.
Yeah. Granddaughter. So, because, well, apparently there was a prophecy, and I'm
Oh
like,
boy,
where
I
is the
love those
prophecy?
good old prophecies.
Apparently there was a prophecy. I know, I really didn't. This was today I found out about the prophecy. I'm like, who made the prophecy? But anyway, there was supposed to be some prophecy.
I think
that,
that said that the fire sages discovered a prophecy like in a catacomb or a tomb or something. I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
I'm like, this was like a couple generations ago, right?
It's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be enshrouded in mystery, just like what George does with.
I mean, it was
prophecies.
after the Kiyoshi novel.
Oh yeah! Cheers.
Some Woods Witch.
Sorry, I just had to finish my drink.
No,
Yeah.
but there was this prophecy that about the the descendants of fire of Roku would like take the Fire Nation to new heights or something like that.
Yeah. So Zuko's mom, Ursa, she was basically forced to marry Ozai because they wanted like powerful bending children. And then with Azula getting the lightning bending, which is like a special girl. Okay. I mean, she's amazing, and that's what I love. I don't know. I'm not a villain, but I stand compelling villains.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I love Azula.
Yeah,
and I'm not ashamed to say it.
Yeah, I love Azula.
She's fascinating.
I love Azula. She is amazing, and I love
the way that she controls
the beach episode was amazing.
Yes, and the way that she controls May and Ty Lee was really impactful to me in my middle school and high school years. Like, it kind of reminds me of Mean Girls. Like, it's a dynamic that you need to see as a young girl to realize how actually insecure the Regina George character is, right? How insecure Azula really is, right? She even has that line, which is one of my favorite in the whole series, when she talks to Zuko, and she says, "My own mother thought I was a monster." She's like, of course she was right, but
she was right, of course, but it still hurt.
She was right, of course, but it still hurt. Like the switch, of that is I think that she's one of the more self-aware characters, and I don't think very many people acknowledge that.
No, that's a great point.
Like, I think she gets points at least for self-awareness. I'm sorry, I love Azula. That's the thing.
I love Azula too.
Growing up bisexual, I was like, I really like Zuko, and I was also really attracted to Azula. So I really like them both.
In a second. Like, I'm sorry, but it was so funny when they were at the beach. With the beach episode, like that party where they all of a sudden are in like the OC episode.
Yes,
right, where they're at that house party and Azula's like trying to talk to that guy.
And we will be the most powerful couple of the world.
I think.
And I think the Ember Island really shows how Azula and Zuko, in the end, retreat to their kind of childish, views of the world and their future.
Well, also with Azula, though, she does. I mean, if you think about it, she was the one who saved Zuko, because Azulon was gonna kill Zuko, right? So Luten died. And then Ozai goes to Azulon, Iroh and Ozai's father, the Fire Lord, and says, well, Iroh's weak. He lost Luten. He has no heirs. I have 2 sons. I should be the Fire Lord. And Azulon says, how dare you? How dare you say that about Iroh? I am going to take away from you what he just lost. I'm going to kill Zuko. And
your son.
Azula, and Azula witnessed this. And the first thing she does it, like callously.
Yeah. And in the show, it's presented as Azula being a dick. But we find out that's not actually what was happening.
She completely saved him. She saved him by telling him, and his mom heard, and
his mom.
I don't know.
And then his mom saved him again by leaving. which we won't super get into what happens necessarily to Zuko's mom because it is in the manga. So we don't want to.
It's in the what?
It's in the
It's in the
external.
what?
It's in the manga drink. So check that out.
Don't try saying manga to get out of this.
Buy the graphic novels. whatever.
Yeah.
I know. It was funny. I was looking
I was trying to
for
say
it.
it to be like that. We technically said graphic novels and Kyoshi novels.
No.
in the beginning.
Okay,
But so basically, you do have
called
these
The
people.
Search. Well,
The
wait, it's called The Search, and it was funny. Sorry, just a side funny story is that we just moved, and I was looking for it to read it in prep, and I couldn't find it. I'm like, I'm trying to find all these novels, and I'm looking. I'm like, which one's
so
The
I
Search?
know.
I'm like,
I'm
which
not a
one's The
spoiler
Search?
baby, so I wikied it to know
Yeah.
what happened, just so I would know. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that here, just because my listeners might be spoiler babies. But I love you, dear
Yeah.
listeners. It's fine. You can feel how you want to feel about content previews. I really don't care. I just want to know. I know I'm going to consume the content anyway, and I just kind of want to know what I have and what it has in store. But that's okay. So yeah. So
Yeah.
you do have Zuko's mom and Azula both protecting him. It's just in different ways, and Azula just doesn't quite know how to be nice.
And also Azula at the end of book 2, she gave Zuko all the credit for killing the Avatar.
Yeah.
They made it out like that's because she suspected he. Though take that away,
Yeah.
Dent, because
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, go.
she was there was uncertainty as to it's like in A Song of Ice and Fire when you don't have the body, there are going to be theories that person is a Shara Dane, right? Like every single time. Like, so I think it's clearly presented in the way that it was like Azula was like, he might be dead, but if he's not, you get credit for that, so that if I'm wrong, that goes on you, right? Because being wrong about that thing is really, really bad. So that's how I think it's presented. But
I guess I'm just saying that she welcomed him back in.
sure,
Like,
she does
wasn't like
she does seem to have some, like, you know, she says, I'm just looking out for you. There does seem to be a degree of, like, I think at the bottom of her heart, when she's in her right state of mind before the end of the original series, she has a part of herself that loves her brother, you know, like, I think that's clearly there. I wouldn't doubt that. But she's also watching her own ass at the same time. That's kind of how I think.
I think she's a sociopath, but not a psychopath.
Sure,
She
that's well
is
put.
Able to produce feelings, it's just not in a healthy way.
Yes.
So it's not that she's unable to have those feelings; it's that she's unable to kind of work within a society in a productive way. And I think also the fact that she was born kind of with a silver spoon in her mouth and told that she was going to be this great royal, it creates if she wasn't already narcissistic, it adds to the narcissism of her seeing herself as, you know, I'm sorry, my mom has a master's in psychology, so there are 9 indicators to narcissism, and one of them is illusions of grandeur, and I think she definitely has that.
Well, I mean, she kind of has Cersei syndrome.
I was going to say Cersei.
I know, they're like little
Check
Cersei
out my,
and Jaime
everyone, check out my, your listeners, check out my
relationship.
episode with Rohan. We talk about Cersei, and we talk a lot about her psychology, so please check that out. Plug. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Christina.
She's on, oh, yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Well, no, I just meant, like, you know, being she's the spare, but the more talented and...
What are you saying about Jaime Lannister? No.
What'd you say about my... No, and the recognition, too, is something that's interesting, is that Azula craves that recognition, and so does Zuko, but in the end, Zuko feels like he doesn't deserve it, he has to earn it. Azula feels like she's already earned it and is just waiting for the recognition. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah. I think they really don't, in my opinion, which I thought was interesting, like, I don't know, Amy, how do you feel about this? Like, do you feel like there's gender issues there? Because
I do.
Oh yeah, here's the air horn.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was gonna say, like, there
Definitely.
absolutely is, yeah.
Hands down. Yeah.
Okay.
This panel 100% agrees, gender issues. Yeah, because that's the thing, is that you know, it would be very easy if Zuko were more talented for her to be passed over because of gender, solely because of gender. So even though they show her a little bit as a natural talent, I will say I would like to get some if we were to get some Azula content, I would like to see her practicing firebending and working hard, because you can have natural talent, but you still have to cultivate that talent. And I think she is naturally she might be naturally talented, but in the end, I think she put the work in and she sees the results, and she sees Zuko as a bit of a slacker who thinks kind of because he's a guy, he'll still be recognized, but she has to work hard because she's a woman.
Yeah.
Who did Azulon threaten to? You just mentioned who did Azulon threaten to take away? It wasn't Azula. Now,
Exactly.
thankfully, right? If you're Azula, you don't want to be threatened to take away.
Yes.
But that kind of shows that Azulon was
It's a
saying,
hierarchy.
who is the more important of these two? And he said it was Zuko, right?
Well, Zuko was older though, but that's the whole thing. It's like we haven't had like the firstborn girl.
Is Zuko older?
That's hilarious because Azula always comes off older than
Azula's older.
God dang it. Okay, I'm going to the wiki right now.
I thought she was okay.
I'm 90% sure Azula is the older of the
That
two.
is also what I thought, but I am not 100%, so just give me like 2
I know
seconds.
she would call him Zuzu, but like I don't
She says
know.
little brother, I think.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. So that kind of builds on the fact that they were, I'll talk while you look that up, that
Yeah.
I think they're purposefully, now they're not going to, and they probably should, and I think shows will continue to do this more even with child audiences, to build on this idea that like the patriarchy is real.
He's older. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Zuko is older.
Well, okay, but that's what I like about Avatar, because it does the fact that the Avatar like switches genders, I suppose, and not to imply that there's two genders. It's just like we don't have a non-binary Avatar, but like to go
Not
into
yet.
that, I know. I hope they go there, but
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
hey, I mean, they did.
Is Zuko older? Is that what you said?
Yes, Zuko.
Is he really? Wow, it really doesn't
Yes.
read that way to me.
And Azula, I think Azula has these leadership qualities that even though she may not use them for good, Zuko, in his childhood, at least from what we see, was always a little bit more of a follower.
I would say so. Are you sure? I swear. Good for Azula, because she tricked me. I thought she was the elder.
Me too. I know. I keep looking for it, but it just.
I mean, I just saw it. It was
brother.
Zuko Wiki. It says the older brother of Princess Azula.
Okay, but I do think that we can see this though as her then. Okay,
he's
so
14 and he's 16.
Okay.
Wow.
So, wow. That is not. I like what they do with that. And actually, this is one thing I was going to talk to you guys about too. Is that they were mentioning how one of the I don't know if it's still happening, but Netflix was originally going to do an adaptation of Last Airbender, and they were originally going to make Katara the older sister. And I was like, no, honey, you don't understand themes and you don't understand the character arcs if you do that. Like. That's not how it goes. Like that's the thing is with the show, everything is well thought out and packed with significance. So normally with adaptations, I'm like change things if it's convenient or better. Otherwise, leave it the same. And that's with Avatar: Last Airbender, the best adaptation is going to be leaving it.
I get it. No, it's already perfect as it is. Like I don't know. I'm sorry. I need a T-shirt that says "Animation isn't dead" because it's just like this didn't die. Like.
Well, this also encourages things
amazing.
like, and not just that, but Western style or Western anime. So we have Blood of Zeus, which is on Netflix, a Netflix show. It is the anime style. It is about Greek mythology. Like that is so cool. The way that I think that Avatar has opened up a lot of ideas of creating a fantasy world that is vaguely, if not directly, influenced by real world cultures, which is why I don't really feel it as cultural appropriation, but more as an inspiration from certain, certain teachings, like with Buddhism and the Air Nation, or certain lifestyles, like with the Inuits and the northern and southern water tribes. There's obviously a lot going on there. And I think that the Fire Nation has a lot of Hindu, but mostly Japanese influence with the way that they have their society kind of structured. And also just the way that whenever Zuko gets up, that's a very small thing, but I pause it every rewatch. Whenever Zuko is in his chambers on the boat, it's maybe even first season, Iroh comes in and he gets up from an altar that is like for the dragon and has, candles and everything. And either if it's worship for the dragon or worship for the Fire Lord, either way, it's Japanese, like pre-World War II Japanese. So I just found that when you deify the leader like that. So, this is obviously, this is like teasing you listeners for when I do my future episode on the Fire Nation, because I have a lot more to say about the Japanese and the Hindu parallels. But what I find fascinating about that is this question of go ahead and drink honor, which is so huge to the royal family and so huge to the kind of the culture of the Fire Nation as it's presented to us in the show, which is love of country. And what you see, especially with that, one of my favorite episodes, actually I would say Dying on This Hill, favorite episode of season 3, where Aang goes to the Fire Nation school. We see the kind of cult-like kind of a lot of it to me reads as you could really fill in anything. You could say the Maoist era. You could easily fill that in. You could say a lot of eras in the USSR where you Kim Jong-il, like where you deify the leader as the god or or gods. The royal family becomes divine.
Okay, well, wait. 2 things. Three things. One that's amazing. Thank you, Amy. I love your perspective on it because
same.
She brings the things where I'm reading and I'm like, I can't wait to hear what she thinks about this. 2, Dent, are you reading the Kyoshi novels with us?
Oh, yeah, I'll absolutely read them.
Dent, I haven't even thought to invite you to book club. Do you want to come?
Oh, for sure.
I will send you both. I will buy you both the novels and like send them to your house. Okay. So
don't worry, I'll have Bae buy my novels. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Wait, I can't even wait. Okay, so 3. Can I read you this thing?
Yes,
that
the answer is always yes.
About the Fire Nation, and I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on it. So
I feel like you're trying to sneak in a from the graphic novels thing, and you need to drink to that. So
okay, I got it. It's not. It wasn't said, but the spirit is there.
You're reading from them, so I feel anyway. Sorry.
Yeah,
definitely. You're right,
it's funny. The sun's going down. I need to use my ring light for. It's like this is such fancy.
All right, kids, gather around for story time.
It was like by the power of my ring light, I will read.
It looks like you're questioning the book. Like, where were you last Wednesday?
It does.
I know. Okay. Well, anyway. Okay. So from Iroh. I often wonder what the Fire Nation may have been if Sozin had listened to his friend Roku all those years ago. Before the war, the Fire Nation was a strong people in every way: trade, commerce, and weaponry. That spark we carried with us was like the light of a new day, touching every nation we were in contact with. We were powerful, honorable, but so stubborn. We were like children, so eager and powerful and full of life, but needing guidance. We carried the kind of resourcefulness and resilient spirits honed only by living on volcanoes. What we lacked, however, were enlightened leaders. The need for power burned in the heart of one Fire Lord to the next, and the next, and the next, stopping, I hope, with you, Zuko. There is more to being great than seizing power. To lead, you must step in front of your people and show them how to behave with honor and heart, being an example as a man or a Fire Lord. If I had been Fire Lord in Ozai's place, I would have done things differently, or at least that's easy for me to say now. In truth, that was never my path. Deep down, I discovered it really wasn't something I wanted. It was not my destiny, drink, to be Fire Lord. The fates had other plans for me, for the both of us. But that's like kind of it's an insightful thing about the Fire Nation, right?
Absolutely.
And who they are as people. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that line about the need for power running through the family, it kind of reminds me a little bit like a something that's described at the end of every Chinese dynasty is that each emperor was starting to get more greedy, more power hungry, and more licentious because, like, look, they were allowed to have 200 concubines. They just couldn't be having orgies with all 200 concubines. You know how it is, traditional China. So you had to be with one concubine at a time. There are all these ideas of, so literally every last emperor is described as being power hungry and licentious and not paying attention to what the people needed. And it describes why it justifies why the dynasty ended, right? And I kind of feel like there is this set even before Sozin. there seemed to be an idea of a decline as far as power hungriness and a need for expansion, and the kind of imperialist and kind of colonialist aspects of the Fire Nation in Zuko's time period and before that seemed to be kind of leading up to Fire Lord Zuko, who is going to put his foot down and kind of stop the madness. And I think Iroh is a huge part of that.
Yeah, that was
really
Iroh's
his
plan,
spirit.
really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really Iroh's spirit working through Zuko, and this is not to diminish Zuko's role, but rather to highlight what you get from your teachers. And I'm a PhD student, so I've had amazing teachers over my life, in my undergrad and during my master's. And you do really carry, I'm gonna get emotional, you do really carry their lessons throughout your life, and you kind of apply their teachings to your life, and you then also learn your own lessons that then you can give to others. So we do know from Legend of Korra, Zuko has, it's his daughter or granddaughter who is Fire Lord, I can't remember.
It's his daughter. He stepped aside.
Azumi?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that he stepped aside in the first place shows that how much he learned and how much he trusted in his own daughter. And I think that is really I love Zuko all the time, but old Zuko has a special place in my heart because he is an almost complete person. Zaddy Zuko. But he really is there is no such thing as a complete person, but he has perfected a lot of things about himself. Dent, what do you think about the quote that Christina read?
I guess what it was reminding me of, what you were saying, I guess. So I don't want to derail too much here, but it reminds me of in A Song of Ice and Fire. Sorry to make this about all of the Song of Ice and Fire, but I think it fits
do
here.
That on this channel.
So Jaehaerys and Alysanne, they're golden reign, right? The golden reign that we've got from A Song of Ice and Fire of the Targaryen dynasty, where they do all these amazing things for most of the realm, right?
Also,
People's
Alysanne
lives
and Barth were the main behind
and
that.
Alysanne and Barth are huge. I mean, Alysanne does more for maybe even the general people, especially women, right? But anyway, they create this thing where Westeros is improving for people. And what happens after that, though, is when you get to Viserys the First, what happens is King's Landing is described as this constant state of balls and parties and things like this. Essentially, they're resting on the laurels of what was built by their predecessors, right? Their predecessors did these great things and made the kingdom great, but then as it passes on, when you're not the ruling faction that got it there, you don't have the same understanding of what you went through and how it's actually helping people. And that's kind of what you were talking about with these Chinese dynasties too, where when you're not at that ground level of what's helping people, and Jaehaerys and Alysanne were famous for doing this, right? They would go out, talk to Alysanne, particularly with her women's court, right? She was hearing from the people.
Well,
to bring this back into Avatar, that's what Zuko does.
Iroh does.
And Iroh, yeah.
They go out into the world and they see, Zuko sees what his father's done.
And that's what he says when he comes back. He says, I've talked to the people. They hate us.
Oh my God. Yeah. When he was in the Earth Kingdom, that is some of the best TV ever produced. And why
you mean
three is almost season 3 tea shop.
Sorry.
Iroh drinking tea. I'm counting it. Anyway.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Zuko alone is the top.
Zuko alone is so freaking. Oh my God. Anyway, season 3 is on. Okay. Shout out to Stephen Stark. Season 3 is his favorite. He's almost changed my mind, but I'm still solidly in season 2 because we have Zuko literally on this weird camel bird thing, and he's just miserable, and he's seeing how much people hate the Fire Nation, and for good reason. Right?
When
he gives this knife to the kid, right? And then the kid finds out he's Fire Nation, is you be taking that back now? Zuko doesn't blame the kid. He totally gets it. And it's his kind of tour through the Earth Kingdom that he realizes, and if we want to get World War II allegory, it would be like a Japanese person going through Manchuria in China, Northeast China during the 30s, seeing the wreckage that has been caused by one's home nation, right? So he's seeing how the Fire Nation has subjugated the Earth people, and they're strong. They're supposed to be unyielding. We know tough. I mean, come on, right? And so he sees these people being downtrodden.
Is she the earthbending girl? No,
Yeah,
sorry.
she might be. I also definitely want to talk about Zuko Toph later because I think it's kind of cute how she didn't get an adventure and she was mad about it. But anyway,
They
it's not
actually,
fair.
oh god, they actually did mention this in the book.
Oh, in the book. Cheers.
No, I love this book. I love this book. It's I will buy you both a copy, I promise.
Don't worry. We're gonna read all the
Like,
things with you, Christina, and make all the
have your man or whoever you need.
I'm just gonna make an Amazon wish list.
Well, it's funny because Iroh said that they didn't have their side story together because they were too alike.
I actually think that Toph and Zuko and what's interesting too is in Legend of Korra when we get the Toph Beifong's kids and everything and kind of the way that she parents, it's to me, I feel like Zuko and Toph were good friends as far as being similar. But I think that when he saw what was happening with the Earth Nation, that's when Zuko really realized that his family is influential, but not in a good way, right? His family is making a difference, but not in the way that Zuko, right? It's about legacy, and Zuko only thinks about his father's legacy really until he starts to join the Avatar, when he's thinking about his own legacy. And he thinks about, how would people see me? People are afraid of my father. They're afraid of my sister. They don't have to be afraid of me, right? He can change. He can be different. And he also in season 3 where he get your drink ready, Christina, because when he replaces his must capture the Avatar with must help and teach the Avatar mission, that's a huge turning point for him.
I mean, the biggest step was like when he achieved, as me and Dent said, and you too, but like when he got everything he wanted and he wasn't happy, and he realized what his uncle was pushing him for was like, you don't have to be what your family wanted you, like they are, what is it? Who are you, right?
Yeah.
Who are you? Like, is this destiny drink being forced on you? Who are you and what do you want?
It's the Mufasa moment. When
who
he
are
talks,
you?
yes, who are you?
And
Talking
what
to
do
Simba.
you want?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
so
that
funny 'cause
Simba awakening moment of like,
Zuko-
I am the prince.
Our Zooks is such a Simba. We actually recently watched, in the last week we watched Lion King, and we're like, oh my god, this is
Hold
Zuko.
up him while he squirms around.
No,
like, what is happening?
He's such a wiggle worm, but also
I know, so
he
wiggly.
has the like most pathetic growl ever. He's like,
He's still a puppy, right? Though he's still finding his bark.
He's almost a year, but I don't know where it is.
All right, excuses are running out. Zuko, get your shit.
Yeah. Find your badger mole or something.
Can we talk about the elephant in the room, Zuko and May?
Oh yes, please.
Are we there yet?
I wish.
Yes.
Oh, we're definitely there, Dent. I was literally just about to say, can we talk about romantic relationships? And then Dent over here beating me to it. Yeah, so I have feels and thoughts. I've now watched this show about 10 times, and I'm still not here for it. I just, you know what? I'm going to get all the negative out first, and then we'll get into the positive. But they seem to have a really dysfunctional relationship, and I have some of my flashbacks to my exes where, like, their fights and everything. And and the part where she's like, I don't hate everything. I don't hate you. It's like, oh boy, this is supposed to be warm, fuzzy feeling time.
Wonderful.
This is the one part of the show where I'm like, don't teach kids this, right? Don't teach kids that it's okay to like be on and off constantly. And that just means you love each other. Cause I'm currently in a relationship where we do not like fight that much. We might have heated discussions, but we don't fight that much. And it's like a revelation to me because it's our culture has almost normalized these kinds of weird, dysfunctional on again, off again relationships. And I'm just not here for it with Zuko and May. And you both know how I feel. If I were to ship anyone, it would be Zuko and Katara.
Oh my god, you're Zutara.
So
Danger.
Here comes the dislikes on YouTube. I am a Zutara person. Okay?
Oh my god.
I'd rather him be single than with me. Let's just put it that way.
But like but I mean it's like it's canon that like Aang.
Yep. I know they get together. They have Tenzin, Kaya, and Boomy. I get it. They do the thing. They have the kids. Look, and as someone who's not going to have children, you can make a family with someone without having kids. Let me just also reiterate that. Zuko, do you have something to say about your character?
Zuko.
Zuko goes, I'm with me, and you don't understand my life. You don't know what it was like to be one.
Zuko, why don't we just ask him?
No, I get why they did what they did with me. It is nice to also have a non-bender with a bender. I do appreciate that dynamic. So here's the positive part of the Amy Blackfire take on it. I do like May as a character. And it's cute that she liked Zuko from a young age and all that. I could just see this as being like a first crush, first boyfriend, girlfriend thing that then he moves on from and signs a better person.
Yes, and I will
that's more suited to him, not that May's a bad person. That's more suited to him as a couple where they won't break up every other week. I'm sorry, Dent. Go ahead. I've just been screaming at Dent's face this whole time.
Wait, I just turned off my light because this one went down.
So, I have two things with this relationship. First off is how it works from a writing perspective. When Zuko leaves the Fire Nation, him and May have this attraction to each other from a young age, right? They like each other at a young age, which is great. That's, as you said, right? A childhood interest in one another. But Zuko changes a lot, right? He leaves, he changes a lot. May is an extremely static person from a young age. Yes, she turns on Azula that one time and blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's all well and good. And like, not hating on May, I would say that her struggles are a little bit less. You know, we've talked a lot about expectations, and that's her story, right? She was expected to be the princess from a young age, and she didn't want to fit that role. That's great. But comparing that to like what we see Katara and Sokka and Aang and Zuko go through, you're kind of like, your struggles seem a lot less than the other characters within the story. So you sympathize with her from that aspect less within the context of this story. Then when Zuko comes back, it's like he's left and changed a lot. Why would he then, like him ending up with somebody who's been static over this period of time, narratively seems very strange. Zuko's been extremely dynamic. We've seen him go through this incredible change and he ends up with somebody who's extremely static. It doesn't narratively fit very well. It feels awkward together from a writing standpoint. So that's that.
Well, we've removed Zuko from the Zutara shippers.
Yeah, he started barking right when I started talking to Katara, so he's like, I will defend May until the death. Bark, bark, bark.
Well, no. I mean, okay, so his sister, Brian's like their siblings, and I'm like, well, they hump each other, so they might be like life partners, and then
they're Lannisters.
And they're also not like we all live in the same house, and there are dog children, but they're not like biologically related, and they're both
the heart wants what
they're
it
spayed
to quote
and
Selena
neutered.
Gomez, the heart wants what it wants.
Well, they're spayed and neutered. They don't have the same DNA. We got the doggy DNA. They are not mixed match buddies. Okay,
they're free to see each other should they choose.
They hump, and it's weird, and we're like, why? How do you know how to 6
Hormones,
and 9
man.
and
Nature.
like why and whatever, but she's my. So I'm like, maybe he's into Zuko. It was funny because we're like, wait, is it like Zuko and Mai?
Mai.
Yeah, but anyway,
No,
I will say also they're both kind of low energy too. May and Zuko, a little bit. They're a little on the chill side.
They are.
What I kind of like about some couples in the series, like with Suki and Sokka. Yeah. Sokka's not a smooth guy, and Suki is kind of smooth. So it's cute to see the like. Okay, if we're talking about couples, I'm totally here for it. It's Suki and Sokka. Okay, like that
for
is so fucking adorable. And I'm
but he never got over the moon. No, I'm just kidding.
Look,
but
never get it.
It's like. Like my whole thing is like you don't have to be
says to that. That's rough, buddy. about your girlfriend turning into the room. That's the background for today's episode on YouTube. Is Zuko saying that's rough, buddy.
It's hard. So. It's hard to You know what I mean? It's hard to follow up the moon.
I mean,
but-
that's not to mention like the moon goddess in Chinese mythology,
Oh my
Chang'e,
gosh.
who Yue is modeled after, is supposed to be beautiful and elegant and wonderful, and
Yeah.
has a jade rabbit on the moon. So
Wow.
if you thought
Also-
Chinese
also
mythology
get
was
your
boring,
drink.
you're wrong.
Get your drink ready because in the Kiyoshi novel,
Oh,
Get-
cheers!
get ready to ship. If you like, you think you're shipping right now, like I've got a fucking cruise ship for you. I won't say what, but let's just say.
Okay, book club, it's coming up. Please.
Let's just say
there's
it's
this
not-
little in the right corner,
it's
bottom right
not
corner. There's a little thing to
straight.
subscribe to my channel if you're on podcasts.
Yes.
Please subscribe to my pod because Christina is going to tell you all about the Kyoshi novels when we get there. So please.
Yes, please
Get
read
pumped for
them
that.
with us. That would be great. Please.
Yes, book club.
Do you want to hear how Zuko's story should have ended?
Oh, do it.
got-
This is
I've
how
got
it
the-
should have ended.
Let's go.
I've got the answer for you. All right, I've got this all planned out. So, let me find this. Got a whole thing about this. Okay.
What do you have to find? Isn't it in your head? Like, what do you find?
It's in my head. No, I wrote down a thing. I'm not going
He's
to read it.
written
But
a
I just,
fan fiction, Christina, that he's
No,
now
no.
going
All
to
right.
recite for us.
No, I got this. Okay. Season 2, episode 2. Iroh makes tea from the white jade flower, right? It's either delicious tea or poison or poison. It's poison, right? Remember this? They're brought to a town where a young woman named Song heals him back, invites them over to dinner, shows Zuko that she's got the scars on her leg. If you remember this young lady, she's been harmed by the Fire Nation as well. Her father is missing, presumed dead. At the end of the episode, Zuko steals her ostrich horse. She sees him leave off with it. She looks very, very sad, right? That's the last we see of her. The story should have ended with Zuko returning to her farmhouse with an ostrich horse piled with oats and barley on the back of it. She opens the door, looks at him, and smiles. That should have been the end of Zuko's arc, not just because of the love interest, right? Zuko doesn't have to end up with anybody. Don't you look at me like that, Christina. Because it would have done more than, first off, they have this connection that they were both harmed, but they share scars from the earth, from the Fire Nation, right? That they both got from the Fire Nation. But more than that, she's this great avatar. I think that should be like a drink, but she's a great avatar for the Earth Kingdom. She literally bears the same scars that Zuko does. By returning,
Wait, you're talking about the woman in like that little like clay hut thing?
No, she's in a home. It's
Straw.
But she's
home.
kind of out of the
Yeah.
bounds of town, right? She's a little bit off
Yeah.
the beaten path. Yeah.
yes, she's off the beaten path.
So you want Zuko to kind of have like an everyday family man, but in love kind of ending.
I'm not saying they necessarily end up and
And he didn't do
live
that
together.
with Azula. Or
No. This happens after. So this
After
happens.
all the awesomeness, Christina.
He's
Oh, like
He's
after
been-
you read, after
he's
you
been-
read like all the graphic novels you could read.
No. This happens. This occurs. Let me establish your timeline here, okay? This happens
I thought you said
after.
book 2, episode 1.
No. This is when he meets her.
Book
Is
4.
book 2, episode 2.
Oh, okay. I guess.
After
I
Iroh
thought you
drinks.
meant like this is what happens.
After Iroh drinks the tea, they bring Iroh to a village. Remember when he's like all puffed up because he drank the poison tea? Yeah. The woman
Is
who
this
treats him.
before that he cuts his ponytail and they go their separate ways? Or after?
Yes.
No.
It's before.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll notice the next time you watch, you'll see it. It's this young lady. She invites them over for roast duck. She says, "My mother always makes too much roast
and they're
duck."
both in there, and like, isn't Iroh like judging something in their?
I don't
I don't
remember
know.
that part.
I feel like Iroh was like judging their teapots, but he's always.
I don't
Remember
think
when
so.
Remember when he's in
I
the
need a
spirit
15
world?
watch.
Remember when he's in the
You need to
spirit
watch
world
it again.
and he's like, I found this teapot. This
All right,
is
watch.
amazing."
All right,
You'll-
what? All
you'll
right,
s-
Avatar
it's-
content creator watch party. We're gonna watch these episodes together.
It's in the Cave of
You
Two
could
Lovers
also-
episode
You
2.
could also read The Promise, which was this is
It's-
the first one after the. I don't know. We should all read these. I feel like they're gonna adapt these though, right?
They
Like,
better,
they're gonna-
Hold on. I'm
All
not
this
done,
stuff-
Christina.
Dent's got his thing.
I'm not
Okay,
done,
I'm sorry.
Christina.
Okay, I'm muting myself.
Finish your
I'm
pitch, Dan.
sorry.
It's in the Cave of Two Lovers episode 2, which is interesting. that occurs in this episode that he meets. Her name is Song. You'll see it if you watch again. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. She's got scars on her legs. She shows Zuko, I've been hurt by the Fire Nation too. Her father's missing. She shares all these things with Zuko. At the end of the episode, they're leaving, and Christina,
Christina, no,
terrible
this is not
audio.
pantomime time. This
How
is
about you? How about you? I mean it by yourself.
those listening on podcasts, Christina is pantomiming things that are distracting Dent, and I will not have it on this channel.
Point being, the reason it serves narratively very well is that it would show Zuko as the Fire Lord coming back and showing, like, at the end of the series, we see him saying, you know, this will be an era of peace and love and blah, blah, blah. And I know there's the graphic novels, but it would show within the show that
Like
he's going to
bringing
be
it back to
boots
the
on the
people.
ground, bringing it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to actually be helping the people and attributing for the mistakes he's made in the past, right? He stole the ostrich horse from this family that's already lost so much to the Fire Nation.
It did feel like a thread that was kind of cut short.
Yeah,
you know?
I
Some
think
build
it's
up without payoff a little bit. Just a little bit.
And I think it shows better than I just think the connection with May doesn't really do anything for me. Like it doesn't build on his character. It doesn't move his character forward. It's basically a null and void nothing, you know, like narratively it doesn't make you feel anything except, you know.
Oh,
like,
look, that thing happened. And, you know, this is not to say that every single thing must have a narrative reason.
Of course not. No.
As tight as Avatar The Last Airbender gave me a little bit of an expectation for things to tie up a little bit better, especially because, you know, we do get Korra, but there wasn't necessarily a plan to get further than this timeline, what we get in the very last episode. So it would have been nice for things to have been tied up a little bit more. It just felt like a default to go back to May, if that makes sense.
It felt like a default. That's a well put way of saying it. Yep.
And that's not a bad thing. It's an expected thing and a thing that transpired. But I'm sorry. I am a fan of May by herself, and I am a fan of Zuko by himself. I am not a fan of them together. That's just, I'm probably not going to change.
I'm not.
I mean, I'm just
May.
like, hey, you don't have to like end up with your high school like girlfriend. Sorry.
You can't
I'm not
Marshall
saying,
and
like-
Lily everything. You know what I'm saying? Those who've seen How I Met Your
Sorry.
Mother, like that's
Don't-
really rare.
Don't tell my wife
Kyle,
that.
I was like Kyle and his
Look,
beautiful,
not everyone
wonderful
ends up
wife,
that way.
Kelly.
I'm just saying,
Beautiful,
it's got to be
wonderful-
special, like what
Period.
Kyle's got going on with his
Well,
lady.
yeah, that's amazing. That should be the exception, you know. what
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying?
not the
Here's-
rule.
Here's my husband.
No
Wait,
offense,
where is he?
Kyle.
Wait, why are you? Oh my God, you're on this side.
Hello,
Well,
Brian
okay.
here.
Hey,
Here, wait, I
Brian.
wanted Brian in because he's got
Kinetso?
so many- Here, wait. Actually, I'm gonna unplug this. It's a little
Brian.
echoey, right? How's audio?
I'm afraid it's going to echo. Yeah, it echoes. Can you put the... Oh, no, wait. I think it's better now. Hello, Brian. Give us all your
Hello.
Zuko takes, buddy. We're here for it.
Yes.
You have a Fire Ferret picture or t-shirt on.
Oh yeah, go Republic
Go
City.
Fire Ferrets.
Yeah, he's all about Republic City.
Oh, my gosh.
Cora's
Oh.
bad.
I know Brian's like
Oh,
the ruler.
dude! I'm gonna kick you off this episode. No, of course, all right. Brian, tell us everything you feel, all your feels about
Well, we were
Zuko.
just talking about May
and Zuko.
and Zooks.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Okay, so I've been reading the graphic novels. I
Drink.
like the not
Drink.
Drink.
Sorry, we're running low.
We have a
Oh.
drinking game, Brian.
I see that.
was one of them.
and I don't know the current state of things. May has a boyfriend whose name is actually pretty close to Kyle. I think it's like Kyle or something. Kylo.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren?
Kalo or something. But so it's not a given that that's who Zuko ends up with. But I don't know if you talked about this.
We did.
Zuko's daughter, who becomes the Fire Lord or Fire Lady, whatever they call it. I think it's probably Fire Lady, and then if you're
Fire Lord, men and women do the same job. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Brian.
I was gonna
Die
say.
on this hill.
well, and then if you're married to her, you get to be the Fire Sire.
Nice.
But they're
The fire side piece. I like it.
the daughter's name is Izumi, which is Japanese for fountain, and May and Zuko's first kind of childhood, we like each other, oops, we fell in this fountain thing.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if that was not their daughter. if Zuko had the balls to be like, hey, not May. What we should name our daughter Fountain. Why? No reason.
I just liked it still.
I really like thinking about fountains.
Running water is just amazing.
Yeah, it's a modern marvel.
Yeah, well, we're trying to stay current.
Right.
So
I like
talked a lot about the novels. Okay.
I
so-
also like that with Izumi meaning fountain, because something that I really enjoyed about Iroh is how he taught Zuko about how water bending, the opposite of fire bending, can kind of give you a lot of inspiration for your own fire bending. So that's kind of interesting.
It's really funny watching Zuko, actually all the characters, like as they work together and start kind of incorporating each other's fighting styles.
Yeah.
Like okay, when Hama is fighting Katara, it's really interesting to see Hama launching water at her, and Katara does what is it's a very Hungar position, like earthbending. She takes a horse stance, she plants, and she just confronts the water and disperses it rather than try and wrap it around her.
Yeah.
And then Hama's like,
yeah, she's like,
yeah, absolutely. Which goes back to something we were talking about earlier, Brian.
Horse is earthbending.
But horse, they always talk about it in fire. I was gonna say horse position, like that's the position that like Rangi and
yes.
Yeah.
But it's also what
I mean, I see it as sorry, I'm just
yeah, no. You're both earth and fire are kung fu.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they are. Yes, definitely. And then the air nation is more Tai Chi, and then we have the water bending, which is also actually more Tai Chi. Pardon me.
Yeah.
But
airbending's Bagua, which I don't really know much about.
Bagua is a Taoist. Here, put on my Chinese studies hat. So Bagua is a Taoist exercise where you kind of move your arms and feet in kind of a octagonal position, so that you're taking it at 8 different points within surrounding your body. And so, yeah, that's a great way to put it though, Brian, because you do have this fire and earthbending are a lot about standing your ground, and water bending and air bending are a lot about deflecting and actually using your opponent's action against them, which is very Tai Chi. Tai Chi was created in, oh my God, here we go, in about 300-ish BCE, where there was this idea of, definitely around 220 BCE, this idea of the emperor wanting all of his troops to move in tandem to move exactly the same with each other, right? And that Tai Chi was about a set of 24 to 26, I can't remember exactly, stretches, right? And there would be like the monkey pose, there would be many different kind of kung fu aspects to it, but it was mostly about stretching and about moving together, which is why the Air Nation and the Water Tribes are much more influenced by that, whereas wushu, this kind of kung fu fighting, is more Air Nation, Fire Nation, because it's more about standing your ground and deflecting, right? Like you see a lot of firebending where they'll deflect, like Zuko does this a lot. Zula will attack him and he'll deflect her fire so that it's going to each side, and then he'll come back down with some more fire, right? That is very kung fu, whereas you have what you see Katara do and Aang when he's water bending, where someone shoots the water at you and then you bring it around behind you and then back at the person.
Which is what
Zuko
did in his Agni Kai.
Yes, exactly.
It's really
you see
funny.
how he's been inspired by other nations.
And not even with Azula. It's kind of how he what did Zuko Iroh say? Break his root when he was his second Agni Kai, where he was with Admiral Zhao. Zhao had better fundamentals or better raw firepower, but Zuko did the spin move to knock the root off.
You got to knock them off. Exactly. And we also see that with
Sweep
Toph. What is she constantly doing? She's constantly using rock to trip them up, right? To break their stance.
And isn't it funny? They gave her praying mantis style.
Yes. Yeah, where she has her arms. I'm sorry, those of you that are listening as a podcast. She has her arms like this and she moves it like that, right? So they definitely gave her praying mantis style. Look, anyone who's seen Kung Fu Panda, I'm going to talk about Kung Fu Panda on my channel in a couple of weeks, so please check it out.
Panda.
Yes, we're going to talk about all 3 movies with my great friend Yogi. He's Kung Fu Panda obsessed. I have a thing called Buddy Banter where I have a friend on and they talk about whatever they want to talk about, and he picked Kung Fu Panda and I'm here for it. But you see the little mantis in Kung Fu Panda, how he moves his little kind of pincers, right? As Poe says, the praying mantis has those like pincy things. So the way that he moves that is definitely how Toph does her earthbending. But I think that Zuko is kind of like Brian is, I think, getting to, is that Zuko starts to have these influences from other bending that I don't think necessarily his father would have been more open to.
Never.
No,
Yeah.
it's got to be from Iroh. Iroh
No,
teaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's from Iroh, and like it's not even from Iroh. It's like Iroh had his own journey of traveling because of the war, because he had to go to Ba Sing Se. I mean, that's pretty effing far away. But like also in Iroh's enlightenment, because that's the whole thing, to be in the spirit world. So Iroh becomes in the spirit world, right? To be in the spirit world, you have to be enlightened to reach the spirit world, and like.
Well, and we see in, I think it's season 1, or maybe 2, we see that Iroh's able to see spirits.
Yes, he sees
Broke's
the dragon go overhead.
Yes.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
Iroh is enlightened, and he says,
What book? Christina, I'm sorry, I can't hear
I
you.
know, I
What?
read this today. I'm sorry, it's Iroh's Iroh.
But yes,
But, like,
Iroh had
Cheers.
a journey to the spirit world. Zhao mentions that.
Yeah, but he had a journey to the spirit world before.
Yes.
He wanted to see Lieutenant. He didn't see Lieutenant in the spirit world, etc. But
What's
before-
interesting is they use that to kind of make fun of him. Zhao does, to make fun of Iroh, and it's like, dude, he's at a level you'll never be at. Zhao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you're going to be in the spirit world pretty soon, so stop talking shit.
Yeah, you're gonna be wandering around in
You're
the
gonna be in
fog
the
soon,
cold.
idiot.
Yeah, why don't you? Yeah, when you need to get pulled out of the Isle of Lost Souls or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
the mist
Valley
of
of Lost
Souls.
Souls.
Valley of Lost Souls.
Thank you,
Got it.
next.
The human
Yeah.
timeout pit.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
on that. But just saying, like, he said that you had to be enlightened to go into the spirit world, and to be enlightened, you needed to understand all of the nations, and like that's why it became kind of his life purpose. I mean, if you want to put it like mantra, like purpose, right?
Yeah.
Like Iroh saw his purpose as
Yeah.
like, it's almost like he figured it out through his journey of war, and losing Lieutenant and seeing the destruction that the Fire Nation had caused, and like his conquering of Ba Sing Se, etc., etc. He had seen all of this, gained the wisdom, and then saw in Zuko the person to change this course of history, and to change the legacy of the Fire Nation to be, I guess, accommodating and a force of good in all of this. And that has to do with like the White Lotus. We haven't even talked about the White Lotus.
Oh, we're
Yeah,
definitely
but
getting
it's
to
very much.
Yes.
I don't know how much we've been talking about Song of Ice and Fire, but very like.
Don't you worry, Dent has been all over those
Yeah, I was
parallels.
gonna say how Varys describes Aegon in the epilogue of Dance with Dragons. Just this is a king who was raised with the small folk. This is a king who's been classically trained. He knows Essos, he knows Westeros, he knows politics, he knows he's a Renaissance man. He's been trained in everything, and he's humble, and he's ready to lead. That's what Iroh was doing with Zuko, and he was doing it, giving him tastes of every nation. When Zuko's going to infiltrate the northern water tribe capital, Iroh tells him, remember your breathing exercises that I taught you.
Remember the fundamentals.
Yeah, well, and the whole thing about warming yourself with your breath. And then we hear a couple seasons later that's what airbenders do. That's why Aang doesn't have to wear fur coats or anything. It's an airbender breath exercise. But Iroh learned it and taught it to Zuko.
Well, in airbending and firebending both focus on the breath, and you have this idea in here we come. Good thing we didn't make a drinking game out of me going to Chinese medicine and spiritual practice. But the fire chakra is in your belly, so that you warm yourself right with your natural fire element in your belly. But Kent, I want to bring you in on this. But we've been talking kind of all over the place about Zuko. Kent, Dent, pardon me. Is there
Kent's pretty good. No.
Kent's also good. Dent, is there something about what we've been talking about or otherwise that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, something Brian was talking about. What is, at the very, very end of the show, right, when they're talking about who's going to take over once we overthrow the Fire Lord, Iroh specifically talks about, right, Zuko says, well, it should be you. You should come back, and Iroh says, no, it can't be me. It would just be viewed as a brother taking power from another brother, and he's right. Iroh has this eagle view enough to understand how the world's going to view that, and he knows, like, I've already gone through that, right? I've already written my history. I'm not at a point in my life where I could do that and it would be accepted. You're new, you're fresh, you're idealistic. People are going to follow the way that you're wanting to change things. Me doing it won't work. So I think we lost Christina and Brian.
Yeah, we did. Keep going.
But I think that I don't even remember what Brian was saying about it, but that is what Iroh realizes, that your history follows you, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense for Zuko, and I think that's where Iroh sees Zuko as the opportunity to change things. He knows it can't be him, right? He knows it has to be his son Luten, or if it can't be Luten, it has to be Zuko, because it's not something that he can come in and do himself.
Yeah, it has to be a succession, not a power struggle.
Correct.
I also think that Iroh has
from
given
the Lion King taking his rightful place.
I also think that Iroh has seen his own.
Well earlier. I was gonna say Brian and I had the same conversation earlier, and you said it. Also, we were both out in the sun all day, and how did you get so much more tan than me?
He's very pink right now, and it's gonna turn tan, and I'm jealous.
It's so unbelievable. But anyway. Sorry.
I think that Iroh actually really saw his role as one of a teacher and one of, hey, here's my experiences. Don't make the same mistakes I did. And I think that Zuko really benefits from that. Yeah. And that also that the one who has kind of gone through these trials, that Iroh doesn't feel like he should be the Fire Lord, but rather he feels like Zuko is his legacy because no longer has Luten. It's as if he's actually offering his son the throne rather than his nephew at that point.
Brian, what did you say about like the repeating his?
It can't just be, because this is the Fire Nation at its core. You can't have just brother scheming against brother and overthrowing brother and have self-inflicted coups. It has to be Zuko coming back to take the throne. And the White Lotus as a whole was kind of setting it up for that. Both the Fire Nation leadership and Ba Sing Se. This is like, there's that classic picture of the 4 or 5 senior White Lotus fighters. And it's basically like, hi, we're the progressive old white men of our era, here to not take power. We're just shoving the people in power out of the way so everyone else can come in and take over and lead.
It's like they create a clean slate and they expect the young people to kind of fill it in. Yeah, no, you have those, you have Iroh, you have Pian Dao, right? That is Sokka's sword master.
Right, based on
you have the water. You have the firebender who was originally going to be Aang's teacher, but then wasn't. So you kind of have this.
John, thank you.
John. Yeah, you have these specifically white men, unfortunately, who
one
have
of them misogynistically so.
Oh God,
well, and actually, the White Lotus. Paku. Yeah, I have the. I'm gonna go ahead and put on my Chinese studies hat once again. So the White Lotus was actually originally in Chinese history was an organization from the Ming Dynasty, about 1300 to 1600 is when the Ming Dynasty was. So after that, a new dynasty took over, which was the very last dynasty of China called the Qing Dynasty. And they were not Han Chinese. They were Manchu people, which Manchurians, basically. So more like steppe people, more like the Mongolians. And so there was this thing called the White Lotus Society, which focused on trying to reinstate the preceding dynasty, right? The Ming Dynasty. So I actually see the way that they're using the White Lotus Society in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender as these are people that are going, look, it may not have been perfect before, but at least one nation wasn't taking over all other nations. So we need to go back to a time where we were separate nations yet equal, right? Because really what Sozin did more than anything was and this is something I'm going to talk about in a future episode, throw the world out of balance by eliminating one nation, one element. You throw everything out of balance.
And not just the air nomad genocide. Have we talked about light side, dark side firebending?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Ooh,
Okay.
let's get into that.
Yeah,
Let's
We
get
can
into
talk
that.
more though. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
the massacre of the dragons, or just the massacre of the dragons that happened after the Air Nomad genocide, the dragons being the true source of firebending, and that's where bending comes from, where you don't have to be in a place of anger or passion. It's just the calmness and the being at peace with yourself.
Yeah, we've
Like-
definitely talked about Ron and Shao and their kind of like representation of the light that ignites firebending, that is about kind of the sun, the creation, the
Yeah.
day, and not destruction and burning down whole
Yeah.
villages, right?
You could
Well,
basically
but then you
take
think
the
about-
Jedi Creed
yeah.
and put it over the type of firebending Iroh wants Zuko to learn, and that Zuko finally learns. And you can take the Sith apologist creed, where it's like, it's not about hatred, it's about passion. There is no peace, and you have to embrace passion. And you can, in the best light, that is what the
Well,
Fire Nation
be-
is practicing during Avatar: The Last Airbender. By and large, all their firebenders are firebending from anger or emotions, which is very Sith-like compared
Yeah.
to.
But don't conflate passion with anger, like, because like passion doesn't
It's
have
just-
to be, but passion is
Yeah,
a
it's just
good
emotion. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
guess passion can be a light and a dark emotion, right?
Yeah.
Well, and anytime anyone talks about the Force, I always talk about George Lucas's influence and understanding of yin and yang. It's kind of an Eastern teaching and a Western science fiction kind of aspect. And we talked about this a little bit earlier about the Taiji tool, which I got to teach everyone how to say, the yin and yang symbol from something that Christina read from us from these books, which we keep drinking too.
Which is only pronounced that way in the show by Ko the Face Stealer.
Ko, the face stealer, has the best pronunciation, although they say Tui and La when it's Toy and La. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not. You know what? I'm not that purist about it, but I do know Mandarin Chinese, so it makes me a little irked at some point. But so this idea of balance is very much a part of Zuko's storyline. So we've kind of talked about his kind of struggles back and forth. Is there anything that you see as a constant throughout his character through all three seasons, Dent, that is like, that is Zuko that was kind of his heart, his kind of core?
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this earlier. I think Zuko's story was always about people around him from start to finish, right? We talked about how he was banished because he stood up for people who were going to be sent to the slaughter. Zuko, from a very young age, was very concerned with the people around him, both in positive and negative ways. In positive ways, that he cared for the soldiers that were being sent to slaughter. In positive ways, that when he promised Aang that he'd leave the Southern Water Tribe alone, he did. In positive ways, that when he fought General Zhao, he was merciful towards him. Those things were all positive. So that part of him is that Zuko cares about other people, but that has negative aspects to it. Most things in our lives have light and dark to it. The negative ways are that Zuko cared about the negatives of other people as well. What does my father think of me? What does my family think of me? They want to put me into these negative situations, and he cared about those as well. So I think what sticks with Zuko from start to finish, and the reason why the writing makes so much sense, is that he's always concerned with, in both good and bad ways, other people. And somebody learning how to deal with how to internalize other people in your own life, especially from a young age when you don't know how to do that, that's pretty freaking powerful. And I think that that's part of the core of Zuko's story, is other people and how he wants to interact with the other people in the world around him. So that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, I think the great way to look at that is when he has Zhao down in an Agni Kai, and he was about to fire Ben literally in the dude's face, and then he does to the side, and he goes, next time I won't miss. There's this idea of Zhao sees that as weakness, whereas we see that as Zuko's strength.
I agree.
To resist the anger that has driven him for so long.
And I think the other, just real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, but the part of that's good too, because like the other side of it is like you shouldn't let like abusers continue to abuse you or anything. So like to look at that moment specifically, I believe and defend when Zuko says like, "This is your warning, dude. Like I'm showing you mercy this time. Next time,
don't mess with me.
I'm not gonna like." And you shouldn't allow abusers to continue abusing you. And I think there's maybe like a twinge of that in there. So I think Zuko shows that you can stand up for yourself, you can be merciful, but also you need to be able to stand up for yourself when pushed.
Absolutely. And two things, just to finish that point up, even though he warns Zhao, at his core, he is a merciful person. That is the big difference between him and his father. So even at the end of season 1, when Zhao is being carried away into the river by the spirit, Zuko's still reaching out for him.
Yeah, good point.
That's a great point, Brian.
And in season 2, I think it's Zuko alone, where he's in the Earth village and nobody knows he's Fire Nation, and he's trying to drive off the Earth Kingdom recruiters who are bullies and tormenting this farm that's already probably lost their older son to the war, and they're trying to recruit the younger son. He has no reason to get that heavily involved, but he has this sense of right and wrong. He can't stand bullies. I'm sure Azula and Ozai both had a big influence on that. And just, he gets involved when the fight is starting to go bad and he has to rely on firebending, and everyone sees he's a firebender. It's both sides of how much he cares about people. He cares about people, so he wants to help his kid, but he also cares what people think. He doesn't want to just be some rando firebender. If he's going to be a firebender and all these people are going to know it, they need to know he is the crown prince.
I am Zuko, crown prince, heir to the throne. Yeah.
And then you have the rabble going,
what? No, he claims his identity, but he also claims it on his own terms. And I think that's why I really enjoy season 2. Christina, thoughts?
Oh my gosh.
I'm attempting to wrap it up, but just being like Zuko, thoughts ? Is just not enough.
I know.
So I apologize for that.
It's all right. Well, yeah. I mean, he's somebody who, again, he's young. He is impressionable, and don't we all strive for acceptance, right? And him being born into this impossible, and again, I'll put it like LOLs, Harry and Meghan, the family business of power and war and overcoming, subjugating people. And this is what he's been born into, and like what he's expected to be, and this powerful bender, and his sister is more suited to that, right? Her personality, his younger sister is more suited to that, and he is who he is, and he's actually a good person, right? He's actually a decent person who, conflicts with these ideals of what he's been born into. And that's very, what's the word for it? It's very, like, I don't know. It doesn't go together, right? Who he is and what he's been born into, and they
can't be reconciled.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Brian.
Yeah, it's the thing is though, is that the person that he is truly is what the Fire Nation needs, right? And the person who sees that is Iroh. And Iroh sees that Zuko is what thank you.
I had to put up a picture of them.
And he sees it, and again, like I said earlier, Iroh sees this as his second chance to reframe the Fire Nation and really bring the Fire Nation back to where it should be, and not where like this ego brought it to, right?
I think Dent's gonna do it. He's gonna play the song.
I also, just when you put up those pictures, it made me realize, the Fire Lord looks like Lee from the tea shop.
Yeah,
what?
I love how everyone wants to interrupt my good point. So anyway,
serenade us with the Soldier Boy first, and then we'll go back to.
I was gonna wait until you were done, Christina, but I'll play you.
So sad.
But Zuko's
Sorry.
the whole
Just wanna
soldier
cry.
boy. But that's the whole thing. Is
He
like,
is the soldier
Zuko's
boy
the soldier
that Iroh
boy.
wanted all
He
along.
tells them. He
Soldier
tells
boy, he
them.
told him.
He told
And
them.
he comes
told
marching
him.
home on Appa's back for the third
Look,
agony.
it's really look. I'm so touched by
True, though.
Iroh in
It's all
general.
about Zuko finding out who
Yes.
he is, independent of his family, and being like, I can be myself, and I can also be a person of the Fire Nation. I can also be a leader. I can stay true to who I am, and also be not only like I can be true to who I am, but like this is who I am, and who I am is also what he learns with the dragons and through Aang too, and his friendship with Aang. And I think this is like the most powerful thing, which we really haven't talked about much, is his friendship with Aang and like what Aang teaches him. And Aang teaches him, thank you. I know we have the same artwork.
I love this artwork of
but, like,
Aang.
what
Yeah,
Aang-
them.
But that's the whole thing. Their friendship, right?
Yeah.
And like Aang and Zuko and their friendship and like their destiny to be like, yes, they have a destiny to be friends. Drink, because I said destiny.
Destiny.
But it's like a destiny in a way that like you wouldn't think. Like they're not like Sozin and Roku necessarily. Like Aang is so carefree and like kind of the opposite of like this like stuck up, like Fire Nation, blah 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 blah. But like,
But he does have his morals
thing
as
about
well.
it is that Zuko can be who he is, and the thing about Zuko and what Iroh sees in Zuko is that who Zuko is that, and who he discovers who he is actually, yes, the leader, the calm, powerful, insightful leader that the Fire Nation needs to like reframe their legacy and to be the greatest Fire Lord, because you can't think of the greatest Fire Lord. All of the Fire Lords you know of are like awful, right? Sozin, Azulon, Ozai, like they're freaking awful.
Yeah.
Who was like an example
They're dictators.
of a great leader? And you think about it, and it's Zuko, and like that's who Zuko needed to realize that he was, and he had it in him all along, and it has to do with heart, and I'm done.
Well, I think Iroh believes a lot in how things happening the way that they happen and accepting that, and so he thought that I'm getting a little emotional. He saw Luton as his little soldier boy, and in the end, it was Zuko, and it just. Who would be the one to carry on his legacy? And he, like, I'm sorry, this is like the 50th time we've said it, and I'm going to say it again because he feels like he failed with Luton. He gets that then with Zuko, and so Zuko is a second chance for himself, but also for other people in his family. I think he's also Azula's second chance too. I hope we get a lot more about her, but I really think that her relationship with Zuzu can also create a lot of growth for her. And so I think Zuko is kind of the Dent's been using this idea of kind of a centering thing. How Zuko centered himself in a certain ways. Zuko is actually the center of a lot of storylines, including Aang's, in order to learn firebending, in order to find balance, because he was rejecting firebending, and that is, you need all four elements to be the Avatar, because balance is what Avatar embodies. And we see this in Legend of Korra, of course, where we get Wan, the first Avatar. We see how important the spiritual and the bending aspects must be kind of together. And so I see Aang as, he had the spiritual thing pretty down pat because, he had great instruction at the Air Nation, at the temple. And then he's got, water bending with Katara, and he's got earth bending with Toph, but he really needed that fire bending. And I think Zuko was the perfect choice because Zuko has had such a journey, and Aang too has had quite a journey of acceptance and realizing that you can make a difference in the world. And that's why I think Zuko is one of the best additions to Team Avatar. Oh, I love that so much. Yes, that picture of Avatar and Aang and Zuko realizing the origins of firebending together. They shared a spirit. It's like they tripped on acid together, right? They shared the spiritual experience that like is so special to them.
Everyone needs to go on a life-changing field trip with Zuko, and I do feel bad Toph didn't get that.
It's not fair that she didn't get me on a life-changing field trip. Look, with Sokka you got that's rough, buddy. With Katara you got let's go avenge the death of your brother. And then Toph is like, and then Aang, it's like, oh, the origins of firebending. And then Toph is like,
I love the idea that Zuko has had such limited social interaction. He basically got kicked out of his nation before he got to have friends. He has a ship of crewmen and his uncle. He hasn't really had friends his own age, so he has no real birth of experience to draw from except what he sees Team Avatar, how they treat each other. And he sees Aang affectionately refer to Appa as buddy all these times. And then in a moment of panic, he's just like, that's rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
That's what friends say, right?
That's what they say, right?
That's what I must do as a friend.
Okay, everybody take a drink because I'm reading from Iroh's words. It says, if memory serves, you never had a, quote, life-changing field trip with Toph, as you did with the other members of Team Avatar. Looking back, I wonder if that was for the best. I imagine that forcing together your spark and her metal would be just as explosive as her fire and your metal. Maybe that particular combustible story is better left untold, eh?
There's something I did want to talk to you guys about before we wrap up. Is
this
idea of how Zuko fit into Team Avatar. So he has the one person that was kind of open to him joining Toph, then he burns her feet. Like, Dent, tell me a little bit about what you think about kind of the ironic aspects of Zuko third season trying to join Team Avatar.
I mean, I guess the ironic aspects are like Brian said, that he's got very limited social skills with people his age. He's gone through a lot of personal trauma at a young age. Not that a lot of these other people haven't. I mean, I think specifically like Aang, Katara, and Sokka have all gone through trauma. Toph, again, in context, when she's like, well, my parents weren't, my rich parents weren't letting me be who I wanted to be. I'm like, look, I'm not saying that that's...
He's not discounting this experience.
I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying it's less than my entire culture was wiped out, or I lost my mother, and like all of my people went. Like in relation, it's like, all right, well, that's nothing. Or even in relation to Zuko, where you've got like my dad fire punched me in the face and banished me. You're like, all right, being the rich kid who didn't get to what she wanted to do is like less than that. That's all.
Toph and Zuko do have those familial expectations, though, right, Dent? Kind of
with my village was burned down is second least tragic.
Yeah, so that's
not to compare tragedies, but
no, like everybody's got trauma in their lives. Like, and like who am I to compare? Like, I haven't gone through trauma like any of those people. But what was I saying about this? So
Zuko,
what were you asking?
The irony of Zuko joining Team Avatar.
Yeah, so I think the irony is like he's somebody who not only has gone through tragedy and thus has poor social skills. They've at least been socializing with one another. He's literally just been with like adults and Iroh's great, but like Iroh's not going to teach you how to interact with like other children, right? Like at all. So the irony is
apparently gets along well with everybody.
That's true.
But
that's just Iroh.
Zuko's date in Ba Sing Se sums it all up.
Yes, exactly.
That's that experience.
You're like, this dude doesn't know how to be 14, and that's like very sad, or 16, whatever he is. And that's like very sad, right? And now he joins Team Avatar at a really pivotal moment too. Like there's no time to learn how to socialize. They're like, dude, like we need to like get this shit together in like the next 30 days basically. And like he's joining with a limited time frame, and you see like, oh great, these people don't even know how to socialize with one another. We've got a limited time frame and they got to figure it out like real fucking quick or we're all really boned. So I think that part of it like adds to the to the importance of them figuring out how to learn together very quickly. And I guess the journey to the Temple of the Sun helps with that specifically, sticks out in my mind, where they do go on this acid trip together. So I don't know. That's what popped into my head.
Zuko, dance with me.
Yeah, I mean, dance is a great way of, learning how to be close with somebody.
Christina, Brian, what do you guys think about Zuko joining Team Avatar, season 3 Zuko? How that kind of transpired?
Pretty thankfully. I mean, I watched it when I was older, so maybe I was a little bit more jaded, but I was like, I thought he might have been irredeemable after season, because he knows, like, I quit the show like 5 times. So
Yeah,
But in the end, it's like drugs. I just can't quit you, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, no. The first time I quit the show was when I thought Iroh died.
When Azula blasts him.
Yeah,
No,
I was like,
fair.
we stopped and I was like, I quit the show. Like, how dare
No,
you?
Iroh is my
How
favorite
dare
character.
you show
So
me
fair.
this show and like do this to me? And then Brian was like, just watch the next episode.
Can we just watch my
Just keep watching. It's a kid's show. Come on, Christina.
I know. So I quit the show a few times, but I will say, as an adult, after all of my like a swap, everything, I was still shocked when Zuko turned on them at the end of season. I thought that was going to be his turn.
It was perfectly set up for that to be his turn.
Yeah.
But they're like, nope, Empire Strikes Back, kids.
Yeah, I was I was so crazed by that. And yes,
Would you say that they subverted expectations?
they averted my expectations. Yes.
but it meant in season 3.
But it was amazing. Well, it was amazing when he was like, I mean, I love the episodes when he was like, why am I so bad at being good? I mean, that's like literally my dog's mantra every day.
Yep.
Zook.
Little Zooks, baby Zooks is like, why am I so bad at being good? No.
Yeah, he gets so dramatic throughout the series. I love it so much.
Yes, but like again, like when he burns Toph's feet and everything like that. But he turns his acceptance from his family to like the acceptance from his family and the acceptance that he felt or that he thought or the happiness that he thought he would gain by that actually turned into the happiness that he felt when he was accepted by Team Avatar. And so like that's kind of where it comes full circle. So that's my take on that.
Yeah.
What about you, Amy?
I really.
Oh, wait. Or Brian.
Brian, go.
Sorry.
You're the guest. You're a third special guest today on the panel. Brian, go ahead.
Yay. I was just going to say, I felt like it was, they didn't have a lot of episodes left by the time he joined, but it's not like Team Avatar did not know him. They're sitting there going, he's struggling, like Sokka doesn't say, he can't be good, he's a traitor. Sokka's like, or someone says like, we know he's had trouble doing the right thing when it counts before. Like they know he.
And you have Katara being like, "Look, he totally gave me signs before, but now he's like giving me mixed signals and whatever."
Yeah, they know who he is as a person, and it didn't. So because of that, it didn't take as long for them to be like, okay, he's literally giving us 100%. He's doing everything he could possibly do to help us at risk to himself.
And who else is going to teach Aang firebending? Right?
Yeah.
We have John gone. Like,
and we don't have other options, so yeah, it's good. And it's that point where when he gets mad at them playing on the beach because no one let him in on the fact that they're going to wait until the comet goes over.
Oh, that's a great
Fire Lord.
Great part.
He attacks Aang to kind of like,
show him no mercy. Like how he's gonna.
And when Sokka runs and tells the others about it, he doesn't say Zuko's betrayed us. He says Zuko's gone crazy. He's attacking Aang because it's a turning point. The idea that Zuko is not loyal to Team Avatar isn't even on Sokka's mind anymore.
That's excellent,
he's
Brian.
one of us, but he's attacking Aang. He's gone crazy. Like
absolutely.
By then, he was already fully accepted by the team.
No, that is so perfect, Brian. And actually, it feels like Zuko was the puzzle piece that was constantly ready for this puzzle of Team Avatar, but not until season 3. right? And even late season 3. So that's a great point by Brian there, is that it's not just because Aang needed a firebending teacher. He needed a firebending teacher who would be the the companion to go with Aang to the Sun Warriors to find out what firebending is really all about, right? Which is why it goes back to Christina's point about Aang and Zuko being spiritually connected. And we can never, in the Avatar universe, we can never discount the spiritual aspect of it. And fate, if you will, destiny. Drink.
Oh God.
The Avatar and the Fire Lord. I feel like that's
and
the name of
Destiny
an episode
play
or
a
something.
huge part in the Avatar universe with the reincarnation of the Avatar, which it does obviously come from Buddhist and Hindu teachings, but it's more also about this idea of, oh my God, I'm going to get super Chinese. Are you guys ready? Yuanfen. Yuanfen means this kind of like karmic attraction to a certain person, where it's like you're meant to be friends or you're meant to be lovers or whatever every single rebirth. And that's how I kind of feel about Zuko and Aang. They were meant to be friends. And and when we get that in the 3rd season, it feels complete, right? Which is why this is one of the best shows ever produced, especially animation shows, is that it has all of this setup and it has that payoff and it ties all of those loose ends.
All right, so the 4 of us will be doing a Kyoshi book club. Right?
We're gonna do a book club.
I'll be on that one.
Have you heard of the Kyoshi novels?
I am familiar with them.
All right. Seriously, I swear last time, guys, whatever your final thoughts are, we're gonna wrap this up about Zuko.
Yeah, right? That was
I've
our
I feel like we've done it. Are we good to go?
Yeah, what about you, Amy?
Yeah.
That's what we want to know.
Final thoughts, Amy.
Final thoughts, me. Okay, thank you for giving me the platform, which is my channel and pod. So I feel like my guests have said absolutely wonderful things this whole time. But especially Brian, thank you for joining us.
Oh yeah.
As I said kind of earlier, Zuko has always been, he was my favorite character when I first watched it, and then Iroh slowly crept up to defeat Zuko as my number 1 favorite character. But I think his arc overall is something that's really attracted me to the show. And I think that his journey is not necessarily so kind of tired and overplayed. And I think that it's really well done in the show. And I think that Zuko, his struggle with doing the right thing and being a good leader, especially once he becomes Fire Lord, is something that I've always been very interested in. So I'm really excited to have talked over 2 hours with Dent, Christina, and Brian there at the end about this wonderful character. But yeah, all right, go ahead and plug your stuff. Dent, tell them where to find you.
You can find me at KWDent2 on Twitter. I'm around there on the daily. Yeah, that's most of the places I am right now.
Yeah,
Christina, my dear?
At Lipbringers or at Lady X Triple, and
you can find Brian at Denver on Twitter.
A whole dang musical.
Yeah.
Do you have a Twitter for it, or is it?
Brian's voices and announcer voice in general are like my favorite thing in the whole world. So if you can just go ahead and
Brian's just Brian. And if you will. Oh my God! Look at how tan you got. That's not
red.
fair.
I'm really jealous,
Wait.
Brian, that you can actually tan. I just turn red and then I go back to being white.
I've been tanning all week, and look. Oh my God!
Some of it's genetics.
I'm so romantic. It's unbelievable. Anyway,
that's Christina.
Right, so the next time we talk, I don't know what your next episode is, but actually we should go into your plugs. Right?
Yes, okay, my plugs. So I've got a lot of shit coming up. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm in finals time right now. I'm a PhD student. We do this thing in the University of California called the quarter system, which means rather than 2 semesters a year, we get 3 quarters, which are 10-week things. So I'm writing final papers right now, and I'm not happy. I'm not having a great time. I'm very thankful to Dent, Christina, and Brian for breaking the monotony for me. But yeah, so I'm a little busy right now, but I do have my next episode of Buddy Banter coming up with Yogi. We are talking about Kung Fu Panda, all 3 movies. So please get hyped for that. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about Poe eating dumplings and doing all of the Kung Fu moves. We're going to have a great time. And I have a lot of his Dark Materials, The Poppy War, stuff coming up with Lo the Lynx. I'm very excited for that. Lots of Aswaf stuff coming up. I'm going to talk about yin and yang / black and white symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire with Bronze Staries. And I also I'm going to talk to Alicia Kingston very soon about Dorne, particularly how women are in the running for being rulers. We're going to have a really good time talking about gender dynamics in Dorne. So I have a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire, His Dark Materials stuff coming up. And as well as The Poppy War, please read it if you have it, by R.F. Kuang. And I'm going to start doing X-Men comics because that's what I've loved since I was 12. And so I'm going to have Kelly, aka Jaded Redhead, on to talk about the Phoenix Saga in adaptations and in the comics. We're going to have a great time. We're going to go through all the sagas, not necessarily chronologically, but we're both huge X fans. She definitely knows the comics better than I do, but we're going to do the best we can. I'm very, very excited for that. So please subscribe, do all the things for my YouTube channel and for all of the podcasts. I super, super want to thank KW Dent and Lady Triple AK Christina, as well as her hubby Brian, for coming on. And you guys have been amazing. And we're going to do more Avatar content with Chris. Definitely, I'm going to do more Avatar content with Christina, and Dent might hopefully come along for that as well. It's going to be very fun. And my next Avatar thing will probably be that will be a video with Hack's Dogma. We're going to talk about the finale and how that is kind of TV history and how amazing it is. So that's great. We're going to have a great time talking about that. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.